Let's pray. Father, we thank you again for this day you bless us with and all the blessings you give us each day. Father, we pray right now for the men and women all over the world that's fighting for freedom and representing our country, that we might stand here today and pray, salute the flag. We just pray for their families that's back home. You'll give them safety and watch over all of them. We pray for our public safety. It's Henry County. We just thank you for their job and their duties, and we just pray for their safety as they go about their daily life, protecting us. Be with this meeting tonight, that it be in order, and that the commission will do what's best for Henry County, that will be pleasing to you in everything we do and say. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
This is a regular meeting of the Henry County Board of County Commissioners being held on Tuesday, May 28, 2019 at 5 p.m. in County Commissioner Chambers in LaBelle, Florida. In attendance are Chairman Mitchell Wills, Vice Chair Emma Berg, Commissioner Darrell Harris, Commissioner Mike Swindle, Commissioner Carson Turner, County Administrator Jennifer Davis, County Attorney Mark Lapp, Clerk Barbara Butler.
Thank you, ma'am. I got to silence my phone. Welcome, everyone. We have speaker cards in the back. We've had some filled out already. If you would like to speak, if you would grab them, they're on the table in the back. Look like this. Fill them out. As we get to that portion of the meeting, we'll have you come forward. So, going forward, first thing on the agenda tonight is bids. Bid number 2019-15, construction management.
I move option 1.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Swindle, second by Commissioner Byrd. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Bid number 2, 2019-18, Wheeler Road.
Chairman, for the record, Shane Parker, Public Works Director. I hand out a updated staff report for you and also emailed it out. Tompkins Contracting is the low bidder in the amount of $125,795.84. I'm going to repeat that real quick.
Thank you.
Okay. The low bid was Tompkins Contracting in the amount of $125,795.84. And this is for the Wheeler Road
Mr. Parker, are you
16th
good with
Terrace.
them?
Yes, sir.
I make a motion to approve low bid.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Turner, second by Commissioner Harris. Is there any further discussion on this?
For the option 1, which has a few more details in it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The next item is RFQ number 2019-19 LaBelle Airport for construction management services for the main hangar at LaBelle Airport.
Move to accept.
Motion by Commissioner Harris, second by Commissioner Byrd. Is there any further discussion on this? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank
you, Mr. Parker. It's going to bring us to the consent agenda. We pulled item D1.
Move to accept. Full B1.
Second the motion.
Motion by Commissioner Harris, second by Commissioner Swindle. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We got several under awards and appearances.
We got it. Are we just pulling D1 or we just?
We were pulling it, yes, it
Okay,
wasn't
we're
ready
not
for
going to
tonight.
discuss it. Okay.
It's already been resolved, is that
Got
correct?
it. Okay.
Thank you.
Just making sure.
The first one is Trauma Awareness Month. Is Ms. Harrington? How are you?
Fine, how are you?
I am great, dear. Come on up. We're going to read this into the minutes. Just like you to come up and be a part of it. How's that? Somebody tell Tracy she's got to print this just a little bit bigger. Nothing wrong with my eyes. The paper's getting smaller.
That's what it is.
Bigger glasses.
Whereas, thank you, Mr. Harris. Whereas Trauma Awareness Month is designed to raise regional attention to trauma and what must be done to reduce the devastating impact of traumatic injuries. And whereas trauma is the leading cause of death for all Floridians between the ages of 5 and 46, with someone in Florida being traumatically injured every 12 minutes, enough every year to fill Hertz Arena 6 times. Whereas motor vehicle crashes, falls resulting in blunt force trauma make up more than 70% of the trauma cases treated in our trauma district each year. Whereas in 2018, more than 2,500 Floridian residents and visitors were treated at the Trauma Center in Lee Memorial Hospital. Whereas national studies show that patient mortality is reduced by 15 to 20% when the patient is treated for traumatic injuries in a trauma center rather than a trauma center. Nearly 1 million people reside in Lee County Trauma Service District, comprised of Charlotte, Collier, Glades, Hendry, and Lee counties, serviced by one only trauma center of the Florida Gulf Coast between Sarasota and Miami. Whereas the Trauma Center at Lee Memorial celebrates 25 years of service. Whereas the Trauma Center has provided life-saving care to over 42,000 injured patients in 5-county region. And recognition is due for the accomplishments and the contributions to improve public welfare by providing quality trauma care for all residents and visitors, injury prevention outreach, education, research, disaster preparedness, and response, demonstrating that an effective trauma center saves the lives of our residents and visitors. Therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Hendry County Commissioners, Florida, this day hereby greetings and best wishes to the Observing Trauma Awareness Month during the month of May 2019. Thank you, Ms. Harrington. Do you have anything to add to that?
Sir?
You have anything to add to that? We thank you very much for the work that you do.
Well,
Grab the microphone, dear. Walk over there to it. Want to hear your voice there.
I have been representing you for the last 13 years, and probably you'll be interested to know that you don't owe any money to the trauma center. Some other counties do. And also, the number one trauma center problem is the auto accident. The next is motorbikes. And one of the big problems we have with the motorbikes is the fact that they don't wear helmet. They want to feel the breeze as they go by. So, and it costs $136,000 to just put a foot inside the trauma center. That is a lot of money. And most of these people need brain surgery, spinal cord problems, and so forth. So anything you can do to get your children, your grandchildren, anyone that you know not to go out without wearing a helmet, that would be much appreciated and will be saving a lot of money. And the next one is senior citizen climbing on chairs and stools and whatnot, palm trees, whatever.
We try to keep Mr. Harris under control.
Yeah, you got it controlled.
And they don't think that anything is going to happen because they've been doing that for 80 years.
Yes, ma'am.
And so it is very important that you get rid of all the rugs you have in your house and have a level floor.
Is
It's
the
a
ladder
pleasure.
okay? Can you climb the ladder?
No, cannot
A
climb the
ladder.
ladder, beginning with you. I know you well.
We'll take care of it for you, Ms.
You
Harrington.
know I know you well.
Again, thank you so much for all that you do. We appreciate it very
Okay.
much.
It's a pleasure, and I will represent you well in the meetings every time.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Second, Disabled American Veterans. Mr. Harn.
Have to go up a little bit with this. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for allowing Disabled American Veterans Chapter 144 of LaBelle to talk to you today. My name is Harley S. Harn, Commander. I come to you today for monetary support for a statue and plaque to be placed at the Veterans Memorial Park in LaBelle. This statue is to recognize the sacrifice that Henry County native Nicholas J. Katina gave on March 2, 1968. While on patrol in Vietnam, his unit was ambushed, and Nicholas J. Katina returned a tremendous amount of return fire and saved many that would otherwise have been killed. His efforts did not go unnoticed. He was awarded the Purple Heart and the Congressional Medal of Honor posthumously. It is fitting that we should honor Nicholas J. Katina by placing a statue and a plaque for him for his sacrifice. The statue proposed is to be of of bronze and life-sized of an Army machine gunner in full gear with a plaque below and a brief story of his deeds that day. The estimates for this statue and plaque at this time are in the range of $26,000 to $30,000. I'm asking the county to consider contributing a considerable amount to this project. Donors that we have now are the City of LaBelle with a pledge of $6,000. Others we have contacted and have not as of yet gotten a commitment or amount are Glades Co-op, the Courthouse Restaurant, Doc Hill Foundation, and I have to make an amendment here. Mr. Watkins, through his efforts, got me, or the project, a $1,000 donation today that he gave me. The Kelly Foundation, U.S. Sugar, the Camburn Trust, and I have to make another, again, announcement. Mr. Watkins got me another $1,000 for this contribution. American Legion Post 130, Disabled American Chapter 144, we are committed. We just don't have an amount yet. Henry County, Harley Davidson, and we are continuing to look for other sources as well. All monies collected will be held in an account at the American Legion of LaBelle and the Fallen Heroes account. Thank you again for your time and consideration, and do you have any questions for me?
Jennifer, can we do anything with that?
You want to ask her or us, bud?
Well, I mean, we had,
If you and Jennifer want to donate, go ahead.
but I know, because we hadn't been doing this.
How much money is the total request, sir, Mr. Harley?
At this time, it's between 26 and 30,000. We do not have a concrete figure. We are massaging the memorial plaque to get it concise as possible, but that's where we're at, just ballpark right now.
Mr. Chair, it'll be right here across the street.
Yes, sir,
Okay.
at the memorial park.
So you're, at the pledges you have right now, sir, you have 8,000, I think I added up?
6,000, 2,000, 8,000, yes, sir.
Okay.
Is it possible to match the city?
What did the city give, 6K?
Six.
How are we looking from, I'll tell you what, how about this, Commissioner, Mr. Chair? If we take this into our budget discussions as we're moving forward, and I know there's been, 2 or 3 items that have come before the board. I think I requested just the other day, as it relates to Tiger boosters. There's a handful of items that are out there. Instead of us just pulling the trigger and making a $6,000 request granted tonight, I'd love to know how it looks from a whole picture standpoint. And then also what their needs are. I mean, do they have engineering issues still? Do they have, some things that from an in-kind perspective, we could lock up? It's a bronze statue. Is it a ton? Is it 500 pounds? Putting a skid steer on the ground to guarantee it's taken off of the truck, is that going to help? Is that part of a $1,500 knock that they wouldn't have to do? I'd love to know all those details. So,
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable way to go, for sure.
What,
but all about helping. Absolutely,
Yeah,
we'll
we
find
want
a way to do
we need to
something.
get involved, we just need to see where we're at, like you said, and come back with a figure, sir.
do y'all have a deadline?
Okay,
Do-
our projected time was going to be November 11th,
Well, we'll be,
Veterans Day,
Was that
We'll be
the
through the
setting of
budget.
it or the purchase? That's the setting,
the
correct?
setting of it, yes.
Okay, that was one question I was going to ask as well. What is the order by date in order to do that?
I don't have that information.
well, you can't order it till you get the money anyway, can you?
Well, they're going to want a deposit.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me, we're working with Daniel Akins.
Introduce yourself, sir.
I'm Robert Shaw, past commander of the DAV and past whatever of every. We're working with Daniel to get the Daniel Akins
Right.
with whatever company he uses to get this plaque and the statue through them, with them.
What's Aiken Davis Funeral donating?
Right now, labor.
Okay,
I don't know what they didn't say what they would financially,
got you.
but they're helping us with contracts and everything to get the statue and the plaque.
Got you.
Y'all have cards, or how can we get a hold if said person wanted to make a personal contribution?
Just through the DAV, Chapter 144 in LaBelle,
It's on you.
or the American Legion, you can make that
Yep.
donation through them also.
You can just drop it off at the Legion. We have a envelope there that whatever comes into the DAV goes into the envelope.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
All right, thank you,
very
sir.
much.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I know that the Henry County Fair and Livestock Show has also met with the city of Clewiston. They have a strong desire. Missy Von Swindle wants to see a flag mounted as you enter into the city of Clewiston on the western boundary. And I know that they're going to be coming before us as well to ask for support with that also. So,
Absolutely, we need to be involved in our community.
yes, sir.
For sure. Number 3, residential design standards. Is that you, Ms. Embless?
I don't think that's what that goes.
We're setting up the PowerPoint. Well, good evening, Commissioners. This is a follow-up to our previous meetings that we've had and presentations we've provided to the Commissioners. We've held 3 meetings with the contractors and invited realtors. We had more contractors that attended, but our meetings were March 27th, March 28th, and then just recently, May 16th. We received input from everybody and had a really good discussion amongst us. And the main issue, which I introduced for us to stay focused on, is really truly what the concern has been, and that is it has to do with modular homes and the complaints that we've received about them looking more like mobile homes than looking like, I'll say, site-built homes. As I mentioned before, we are not allowed to, I'll say, discriminate against modular homes per Florida statutes. And so we have to allow them in all places that we allow residential, period. And so as we narrowed down some of the design standards that we could agree on, and what I'll do is, I'm going to jump here. What I offered in your PowerPoint, if you'll jump to page 4, on the left-hand side are the standards that the contractors said they could agree to, and on the right-hand side is where I've stated that staff is in agreement. The first one is that gable and hip roofs must have a minimum nominal 412 pitch. The next one is minimum overhangs of 10 inches, which can include gutters. And then siding would have to include one of the following, being stucco, lap siding, vinyl, brick, stone, wood, shingle, or similar style. We also have decorative window trim or shutters. And then with homes with a raised foundation, would only be able to have up to 16 inches exposed foundation, and the finish of the foundation must match or complement the finish of the home. The next page continues on with what was agreed to, or what the contractors agreed to. Again, that homes with a raised foundation shall have an integrated porch with a minimum of an 8-by-8 foot landing or similar area. It doesn't have to measure exactly 8-by-8. Porches must be skirted. Steps to landings must be provided with handrails, and all material must be painted wood or vinyl or composite, recycled plastic, or other similar material that matches or, again, complements the finish of the home. The next item is that all homes shall be built upon a solid foundation that includes am I getting, yeah. That includes a stem wall, a monolithic concrete slab, or an engineered pier foundation with an exterior foundation wall in accordance with the Florida Building Code. On page 6, the items listed here were what the contractors felt should be optional. One of them is an attached garage or attached carport. We're in agreement that that doesn't necessarily have to be a requirement. The next item was that when we discussed roof plane changes, which would be like dormers or an offset roof, and I can show you examples as we go further on into the presentation. That particular one, staff disagreed. We felt like that should be a requirement, and part of that is to avoid the flat, straight across look that some homes will have, and in particular modular homes. I know that we're not supposed to discriminate, but that's the issue that I've been presented to address. So, but again, this would be applied to all types of residential in certain areas, and I'll get into that later as well. The other item that contractors felt should be optional is horizontal banding, and we agreed with that. And then the next one was the roof front entry. And this was discussed quite a lot in our previous meetings and the presentations to the board. We really, staff really feels like that this should be required, and that it would lend itself to I'll say a better look of the home.
Are you going to go back over those or give us examples later?
I'm going to go over that. If you would like, I can jump to.
No, I'm just not sure what horizontal banding exactly what you're
Oh,
referring to. I want to make sure I understood that.
Okay. Well, let me see if I've got it real quick. I don't want to make
There you go,
everybody
get to it.
dizzy.
You don't have to.
See if I got an example here, and it's not there. Nope. So horizontal banding, let me back up. That would be where that band would go across here.
A trim of some type?
Yes,
Okay. I see.
exactly.
Okay,
And for certain housing sidings and types, that isn't necessarily feasible.
Okay.
All right? Go back. I tried to make this flow. I'm sorry that I didn't have pictures for each example, but we'll get there. Hold on.
City of LaBelle.
So, right. So I provided you with the section in the Land Development Code for the City of LaBelle. That's been there for years. It has not been implemented consistently. But as you can see, that there are some very, I'll say, aggressive requirements that they have on their books for all residential product that's built in residential zoning districts. And if you'll look at where they require a 512 pitch and a minimum overhang of 24 inches for gable ends, except for gable ends, excuse me, and so on. And I think, and also the requirement for the covered front entry that we've been talking about. Okeechobee County has a number of requirements: minimum floor area of 1,000 square feet and a minimum width of 20 feet. Then it goes on, the notables are where they require that the wheels and axles be removed when outside of a mobile home district. And then the other part here is that I have highlighted is crawl space stem wall. The description of this crawl space stem wall that requires a masonry wall with a suitable foundation in accordance to the Florida Building Code is much like what we already have on our books and is part of our recommended list of standards that would continue. And I highlighted that because that was something that we had been told was unique to Hendry County, and it clearly is not because it's required here. In DeSoto County, again, they have some requirements for manufactured homes, and theirs, I'll just say another notable for them is that they require a minimum width of 22 feet and their roof pitch 3 to 12. And there's some other items here, but I didn't think they're quite as notable, but I wanted you to see what they have. So, staff recommendations. We're at the point right now where we think we've vetted this topic for quite a while, and since we do have some agreement by the contractors that we're recommending that there's these standards that were highlighted on page 4 and 5 be considered for adoption at a later date. In addition, we also are suggesting that the board consider requiring the covered roof front entry, the required roof plane changes, and or provide the opportunity for a choice of one of the other. Additional recommendations from what we've heard from a few folks a lot of folks in the community have to do with container homes. And we do know that there are other jurisdictions that prohibit container homes, and I'll say especially in their residential districts, like what we're recommending our standards for specifically. And the other part of discussion that we had in our meeting with the contractors was our site improvement requirements. Unlike other jurisdictions, we do not have on the books that minimum square footage requirement for sod. You're only required to sod around the septic drain field. And so there are situations where not every new home would have to have the sod around the home, which would be quite awkward in certain neighborhoods. And also mention that we would look at driveway minimums and possibly landscaping minimums, because that's, again, not an unusual requirement in other jurisdictions. So now I'll get into the example homes, and I'll highlight what we have. This, I just took it off of the website, showing an example of a modular home with a porch. The next one is another example of that, but what I wanted to highlight here is that here we have an offset roof line, which is this particular area here where you have the recessed roof line here from this pop out here. And this modular home is only 960 square feet, and with these finishes, I felt like it would fit in any neighborhood.
So if, like this is a modular,
Yes,
so if you required that, then all the homes would be required the same thing, correct?
some of the standards, yes, would be,
You can't just say modulars this, that'd be all of them.
it'd be all homes.
You got those houses in Port LaBelle, some of them looks worse than a modular. Some of them look about like a mobile home, but they're block houses.
Block houses?
They have nothing.
Okay, well,
This-
and again, that would apply to
just a
everyone.
Square,
Actually,
Yes.
like a mobile home with siding.
yeah.
That's what it looks like to me.
Pardon me?
It looks like a mobile home with siding. I know it's a modular, but that's what it looks like to me.
Okay. Well, here's a modular that we've used as an example previously that's been in Port LaBelle for several years, but showing that, these are, I'll say, recessed dormers, and then here's other types of what the modular contractors call these types of pop-ups on the roof line dormers as well. And, you know, this shows a nice example of a front porch, and it has a recessed front entry. This is a Habitat for Humanity home. This has a garage, it has a front porch, a recessed entry here, which would, and it has a hipped roof, and I do believe that that's a 412 pitch. I could be wrong, but it looks like it. And I just thought it was a good example to show that some folks have had comments. This is another Habitat for Humanity home about how the Habitat for, folks have complained that the Habitat for Humanity homes don't look very good. Well, I wanted to show you some examples because I thought that they were not bad. I thought I had 3, didn't I? Nope, sorry. And then this is a entry-level home, site-built home. And this has the hip roof. It's got banding around the windows. And it has a 12-inch overhang on all sides of the roof. And of course, you can see there's sodding there and a driveway. So what's important to know is that the recommended design standards would apply to residential zoning districts that add up to 7,224 plus or minus acres of Hendry County. That's it. Whereas the other residential districts, which start here as the RR, RR5, RRF, on down through the RG1Ms to M3Ms, which allow mobile homes, all of these districts allow mobile homes, we would not apply the standards there. And in addition to that, we wouldn't apply standards to the A2 zoning district, which, sorry, I don't have a map of our future land use map, but that's the white area on that map, and that constitutes somewhere close between about 75% now of agriculture or A2 zone property. So my point with this is there is a lot of areas for the residential standards. There's a lot of area for the contractors to locate their lower cost models in those other areas. And those areas, okay, what happened to my zoning districts? All right, I took those out. But anyway, Myra, do we have on here the maps of the zoning districts by chance? So the zoning districts, as I had maps previously, and I apologize that we'll see if we can pull those up. Nope. It would be, anyway, the RG zoning districts are more prevalent in North LaBelle and in Port LaBelle. Trying to think of some of the.
So are we,
Yes.
what's the process need to be then? Are we going
Okay.
do we need to move forward tonight, or do we need to push this forward? What are you looking for us from tonight?
I'm at the point right now where I think we've done our research. We've made our recommendation, and we're at the point right now where we need the board to make a decision on what direction you want to go. It doesn't have to be ironclad tonight. It's just give me a recommendation, look at our recommended standards, and tell me which ones that you think are appropriate, if any, and look at some of the recommendations staff has made that didn't necessarily wasn't necessarily in agreement with the contractors.
And those were pretty slim. Wasn't too many of those, right?
See, on page 5, Margaret, the minimum 8x8 porch. So that's like across the board. They build that little house, they got to put the porch on it.
That's what yes. That's for raised foundations, which would be any home with a raised foundation. That could be a site-built home or a modular, because there are site-built homes that raise their foundations in certain situations.
So are we saying all?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, and we have to say all of them
Right.
to be consistent with the Florida statutes.
We ask for affordable housing, so my thing of it is that they have their choice, and you have given them multiple choices. So I know we need houses, and it's not how we get them, but I know everybody's concerned about how they look, but some people don't have a place to stay, and we need to consider these houses.
And I think we all agree with that, which is why I wanted to highlight the areas that these standards would not apply to, would allow for a substantial amount of areas that would allow for residences that could be mobile homes or modulars or site-built.
Would they be able to choose from either one of these modules here that you just presented?
Those are just examples.
The one question, the gentleman stood here that night and said the homes he's building would not meet our recommendations.
Correct.
Base
So-
level.
His entry level.
And what we just saw, a couple pictures here, your entry level and several of your Habitat for Humanities are not going to meet the recommendations that we're
Well,
making.
the Habitat for Humanity ones did meet the
Go
recommendations.
back to those pictures.
I think there was only one. I think there was only one home that doesn't meet a majority of the design standards, and it was the final picture.
Yeah.
So there's one.
Slide
So the
18.
difference to that, the only thing that makes that acceptable is the garage and the, this one here, the only thing that makes it acceptable is the trim around the windows.
But that wouldn't be acceptable now.
No 8x8 porch.
No porch.
Could be on back, I guess.
Well, that one's not on a raised foundation, so it would have to have.
Yeah, it depends on how you look at that.
Well,
how
Every
you create
foundation
and
you
interpret.
build on now is raised about 5-6 foot, no matter what you're building.
So if it's 3 foot above the crown of the road,
well,
who makes that decree?
that's not how we would define it. It would be if you have fill at if it is, let's put it this way, if your fill and your foundation is at grade, even though it's a filled property, it's not natural grade. This situation, it would not be considered a raised foundation.
Well, and just being devil's advocate here, we would essentially be penalizing people for making a wise choice to raise the foundation of their home. Because when you do that, you just saved your ability to be flooded, right? In any type of a situation where there's a weather event. So we would want to encourage people to have more fill. But by doing that, we've just said you gotta add an elevated porch to your
No.
cost.
Now,
If we implemented these standards, how's that not being said?
all right, this would not be required to have a porch because it doesn't have a raised foundation.
Understood, but if I'm prudent, right, and I'm building that home right there
Yes.
for a spec house to rent out, or I'm ultimately going to live in that one day, and I say, you know what, I'm sitting here, I got an extra $3,000 to $5,000 that I can contribute towards my home because I looked at what happened during Hurricane Irma in Bonita, or perhaps what happened north side of the river during Hurricane Irma. And I'm going to go ahead and pick my foundation up an extra 36 inches. So I'm going to throw that towards fill. When I take that and I elevate that now on the base level above what grade is right there, now I just decreed on our own design standards that have yet to be implemented that I've got to now create a
Okay.
porch as well.
Maybe I'm not understanding, but if they added more fill and raised the house up, that's not the raised foundation. The raised foundation is when you use a pier or foundation of type,
Okay.
and that.
Basically a modular or a mobile home.
Well, there are they're old Florida homes,
So my home would be extinct.
pretty much.
So
I'm teasing.
No, we're not teasing. I mean, that's what
Well,
it is. It's an
but
old
it wouldn't
cracker
apply
house.
to your home because you're not in any of these zoning districts.
I'm not?
No.
What was the R?
RR
I
is
am in
not
RR.
RR. That it doesn't apply to RR. It doesn't apply to A2 or any of the RRs.
RR, BW, okay, RR, RR5, F, RR.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's RG3, 2, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And what's the WE for? All these acronyms, I don't like alphabet soup.
I'm sorry, but the first,
RRWE,
that is Wheeler Estates, and they're
Okay.
the ones that wanted design standards.
and they did. We had several meetings on that.
And so what you're saying, Ms. Emblich, I think is that, let's use RR Wheeler Estates as an example. That community has galvanized behind saying, we want to protect the type of investments that are being made out here, and we want this baseline of a home built.
I'll say pretty much.
Okay.
Because we have not gone back to the community with these design standards. This is how we left it with them. They said they wanted design standards. We told them we were working on a county-wide approach and that we would include them, but that we would come back to them to see if there was any modifications they might want, or if nothing was adopted countywide, we'd still come back to them so they could establish their own.
Okay.
Through several meetings though, Commissioner, that was,
Yeah.
that was the recommendation there, yes, sir.
Yep.
For that area, that is, and exactly what Ms. Emlich we're looking at tonight.
Yep.
And we had 60 to 70 people in the room every time we met. So that was that's kind of where they're at out there.
And that's
That's
to
good.
me, that's a community making a decision that they're having a forward embracing conversation. You know, Mr. Chair, a couple of the issues that I struggle with. What other, going to page 4, siding shall include. What other sidings are there, other than what you have listed?
I really don't know the answer to that, which is why we put or similar, just in case something new came along. We wanted to be prepared for that.
But I mean, couldn't I make an argument that you're basically saying it needs to have something on the side of it that is no condition?
No.
They don't want bare
restriction.
block,
Okay.
is all they're saying.
Yeah,
Okay.
Ain't nobody do that.
And this is similar to the other example counties I was talking about, have this is similar requirement.
Blocks.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Who would be the person that decrees? Is it going to be done through the building office? That this will be part of the review process as you move forward with your home, the
With-
inspector?
With me overseeing it,
Okay.
because they would have to get used to it before I'd be comfortable for them to make the decision.
And so a CO would not be issued until all these conditions were met.
Correct.
Okay. And then one other item that I had was going back to slide 18. The roof plane changes. Example, dormers are offset roof. So I would just say, I would love to see us find a way to be able to get to a place where if Habitat for Humanity or construction company X, Y, or Z is building that home, that can be accepted. And I'd love for y'all to tell me why that's a bad idea. Because to me, that's a stucco finished, gable
Right.
roof. Is that gable or hip?
Hip.
I always get those incorrect. So that to me is a very strong starter home. Tell me why I'm incorrect on that.
No, and that's what we're building all over Port Bell
That's what they're building in Port Bell right there.
and everywhere else.
Why do I want to be discouraging to that?
I have to say that I agree with you. I think this home should be acceptable. And, a way to address that would be to require the offset and the dormers for gable roofs only.
So on 6, what did they disagree with you on? All of this?
On page 6.
Yeah.
Because that's the only
Go
one.
to page 6 for them.
That was the example I wanted to use towards that one.
All right,
Roof
let
plane
me go here.
changes, example.
Yeah, that's
Dormers
the
are
heartburn
offset
I
roof.
have, too. The heartburn I have is the same thing.
which
That
this
and the
one,
covered roof entries.
this one, and
Yes, ma'am.
this one you have heartburn with,
Yes.
okay?
Because on the picture, it's not a roof front entry, right?
No.
On the example that I'm using, Ms. Emblich, that the one that you gave us
Not a
there.
covered entry.
And so I think you're saying that staff feels that should be required, and the contractors disagree.
Right.
And I
Not
kind of
for
lean
every-
towards the contractor's concept on that because
Yeah.
I'm just looking at it from a dollars and cents standpoint,
Right.
and I can see where that's one of those model upgrades that I'm going to choose. You know,
Right.
Lisa and I are sitting there and we're saying we want to do that. We want to make that decision. You know.
Can you make that an or? I think that was in some of the other languages, so.
Well,
So I believe in some of the other things it was or, so you could say, or roof front entry, or dormers, or offset, you know, you could, one of the
Right.
three or something. Some of those were already in some of the language previously,
yeah,
were they not?
right. And,
that-
or we could just say
One of
they're
the
not
three?
required, they're just options.
Because they're gonna build as cheap as they can, sell it high as they can. So if they don't have to do it, they're not gonna do it.
Okay.
Well, if
Attached
the
garage.
goal is to break the roof line or to make it look appealing, and I totally agree with, and I believe they agree with it as well, at least give them an option. Because every buyer is different, the situation may be different, the location may be different, and maybe they can put an 8x8 porch or the dormers or a broken roof.
Well, the 8x8 porch was agreed upon
By everybody.
by the
yeah,
contractors for
sure.
the raised foundation
Right,
homes.
sure. I was using that as an
So
example
I'm
of the
just,
ors. Yeah,
okay, just want to make sure.
Sure. So,
But not for the site-built home.
Not for at-grade
Right.
homes.
See, at one time on the difference, did y'all figure out the cost difference between without?
We did some ballparks, but I will tell you that the information that we got, I don't feel like I could rely on totally.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
If
If you
it
talk to 10
is,
contractors, you're going to get probably 6
right,
to 8
right.
answers.
And I'll be honest with you, I hate to say this, but from my experience, in the past, when we've had in other counties, when you have regulatory changes that require something like either landscaping or some kind of a design standard at all.
You're the devil reincarnated.
You have, or certain sign requirements, which you'll be seeing in a couple of meetings, that everybody gripes that it's going to cost more. And then all of a sudden, a year or two later, they realize it didn't cost more because it's become status quo, and it really is just a matter of changing the way they do things, is all I'm getting at. And I know that in a small conversation that I had with a contractor, that that base home that you're talking about that should be okay, that something like that to require a porch or something that would change the facade of that, as an example, could be worked out, is what I was told. That's something that could be worked out without increasing the cost.
Good.
But that's just one. All of this isn't across the board that I'm getting on this information. I'm just sharing with you with contractors I've talked with, and trying to educate you all as much as I can on this topic.
Mr. Chair, I think that it really comes down to a new mindset and a protection that the county is trying to implement so that the integrity of a neighborhood and the constituents of said neighborhood feel they're having that. They feel that there's protections that are created. And so, the whole impetus behind this conversation was we had a room that was filled with people that their blood pressure was high because they felt that there was trailers moving into their neighborhood and they had their investments, the biggest investment they'll make in their life, and they felt that those investments were being attacked because their neighbors were being allowed to put up a living structure that didn't meet the requirements that they wanted to see. And so I think Ms. English has kind of put it into a box you've tried to narrow the ability of where it's going to affect from a percentage standpoint greatly. I like it. I think that it's an idea that we should embrace. The level of how we embrace it, I still think we ought to have a bit of a conversation, but I'm for implementing something because I think, I think right now, Hendry County as a whole is kind of the wild, wild west, and if you can find the guy to build it, he'll probably do it. And, we have a hard time monitoring and making sure what your house is going to look like. And I understand it's your God-given right in the United States of America to live in a hot pink home if you want to. And I actually painted my house orange one time. I came back from a weekend trip, and my dad had repainted it white. But it is what it is.
That's good.
Yeah, it was a burnt orange. It was a nice orange. It was solid, and he didn't agree with that. So I was wrong. Dole's right, because I'm younger. So tell me what y'all think.
I think this is right up your alley.
Yeah, I like orange houses.
And I mean that in a complimentary way, because starting from the other end of requiring, a decent place to live, not allowing the Wild Wild West to happen, and holding some design standards, holding some standards to the places, I think this also helps to curtail some of the other bad players from interacting and showing up here that we don't want here.
I agree.
Now, I agree. The language may still need to be tweaked and here, little tweaks here and there, but I think overall, I think we all can agree on that.
Well, keep in mind something that all of you have talked about in the past, and speaking to the commissioners in different areas that's right around us. It seems to be a dirty word is tiny homes, and they're all embracing that because the new millennials, that's what they want. They want to come home to a tiny home. They don't want to mow their grass. They don't want to wash their house. They want to come in. They want to do their deal. They want to go to work the next day. Mm-hmm. That's coming too.
Yeah.
This isn't going to be Marco. This isn't going to be Wellington. I hope if it does, I'm moving to North Carolina or somewhere that's not.
Are you
This is
looking
still-
at me?
I'm just looking out that way. It's your eyes, they just drew me to you. But that's just my opinion. That's the reason there's 5 of us. I love where I live. I live in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
That's what they'd like to call it, but it's not. It's my home. So, and people should feel comfortable here no matter what. I mean, kids coming back here, you guys heard that. They can't afford to come back and build a $200,000 home. They can't.
Right.
This is not, and if they can, they're not going to stay here long because there's no jobs here to
Right.
support that home.
Well, if this helps you at all, that, there's prices for, I'll just use that home that was the last one on the example, on the presentation. That home sells for $139,000. And I think that's pretty good. It's something I could afford.
Which one?
The last one, that was the grade built one,
Number
Yeah.
that we were
18.
questioning whether it was.
The site-built one.
Yeah, right.
18.
I think how much would the module, if you put a modular home in, what would it cost?
I know.
Okay.
It costs
Here's
No, it'd be less.
the modular home. I have it written down. Give me a moment. I have too many things in my pocket.
I think the biggest problem with the modular homes are the ones setting up on blocks that look like a trailer. And everyone can agree about that. A gentleman brought that to my attention, that they're being set up like a mobile home. If they're not built to be set up like a mobile home, they should not be set up like a mobile home. And that goes as far as the bracing and how they're supposed to be set and how they're supposed to be anchored and every bit of that. So with that being said, are we setting modulars up as a mobile? Are the contractors are we going by what the modular home would actually be required to be set up as?
And Mr. Chair, I mean, we live in a state and we live in a county that has a ton of house trailers.
Right.
And so people are already exposed to that. So
Right.
the moment they see anything wheeled in on a trailer via a truck, I don't care how it is, the envision is that's a trailer.
So that's my comment. That's
Yeah.
about the
Yes, sir, I
question though, is
understand.
are they being set up properly
Yeah.
as a modular?
Yeah.
Or are they being set up as a mobile home?
Yeah.
Well, I will tell you, that was part of our discussion in the meetings with the contractors, and there was a divided conversation that the modulars may in one school is that they may not be being set up properly, like I'm going to get this wrong because it's not my forte, but there were contrary positions on whether that they were properly set up.
And that is the
And
question.
that they are being set up according to the manufacturer's requirements that come with it, according to the contractors that do it, according to another contractor that's in the business, says that there are a couple of things that aren't done, and excuse me, this is really getting into the weeds, but something that has to do with a pool test. So I don't have the answer to that.
Well, what's our?
But then we get to, excuse me, sir, then we get to the point of where we have engineers that will sign a document that says that this meets the Florida Building Code. And our hands are tied that we have to accept that, which I personally, and I know I've expressed this before, I'm not happy about that situation. Unfortunately, I don't have the answer for us tonight on how the foundations and everything is installed.
Yes, ma'am. Just look at the ones on Belmont. There's two over there that I know of, and they look like a home. They're sitting down on the ground,
Yep.
look like a home.
Yep.
You know, the ones in Portland Bell, they look they look like a mobile home.
It's a mile.
So
Well-
I understand the issues with it.
When they're done right,
I'm not
when,
saying that. I'm just
when
saying.
our staff checks them and they do what they're supposed to, they look just as nice as any home you want to live in.
No, and I agree.
And then the ones that are not, well, then that's what you get. And so I think the onus somewhat falls back on staff to correct them or hold their feet to the fire as we go forward. Again, I don't think that bothers anyone.
Well, here's why the examples I showed you, I think was it Okeechobee and DeSoto that required them to be taken off the wheels. That's something that has been fought against with my discussions with the contractors, because doing so would cost a few, like maybe they say $20,000 more to have a lift truck take it off of the wheels. I don't have that that number confirmed. That seems a little high, but I'm not in the business. However, that what?
Modular home?
A modular home, taking it off the wheels and putting it right on a slab or stem wall foundation without piers.
But you wouldn't let them put a house up like that, would you?
But they'll put a trailer in like that. That's the
What,
same way you bring a
I'm
trailer.
sorry,
Yeah,
what are you
but I
talking
mean,
about?
Shouldn't the same for
the same way,
modular be the same for a site-built house? When you set it, when you do the foundation,
Well, that's, right now, modulars are being set on pier foundations.
just like a house?
No,
Those are like a mobile
just
home.
like a mobile home.
Well, why can't you do it just like a home?
We can do that, but that's what I just said, that the contractors say that it costs $20,000 or so more.
To do that.
And that would, of course, increase, yes. And I don't have verification of that, but I suspect that it would cost some money to, lift that modular off of the frame.
And I get it, they just don't want their home, their value of their homes to go down, and then the way you just said they bring them in, they bring trailers in like that. So,
Right.
And they just concerned about the value of their home. It's not so much them being against it. Is there now ordinance in Willis Estate? They don't have an ordinance, right, what can and what cannot come in?
They want an
That's
ordinance.
what they're
They wanna do
working on.
one?
They are working on that, yes.
But the complaint isn't just the value. It really isn't. It's more about the look. And that's what we're trying to address. We've already been proven by the property appraiser that, the values are the same. I mean, there's a little difference with the
Little dip.
depreciation.
Yep.
But it's not
enough to be
substantial.
negligible. Yeah.
So I think that's really off the table. That discussion has been addressed.
The only way you're gonna change the modular is you gotta have a porch and a carport or something like that.
We'll make a motion, Commissioner.
I'm not gonna make much, but you can, like he said, you can go over on Belmont, drive down there, and there's two there. They look just like a house.
Yes.
There's one right next to me, looks just like a house. Got a porch on the side and a porch on the front of it.
And then, it's just to sum it up, my concerns are the roofs. I
Yeah.
mean, if every house doesn't have to have it, I mean, to me, there's no, personally, if I build a home, that's what I would have. The winds are gonna blow all around it, no big deal. Anytime you put a gable up, it's a wind block. So I would put a roof. If I was gonna build a home, that's what I'd build it like. So the roofs are my only thing, assemblage, and the question, like I said, would be, are they being set properly? I know the engineer's gonna sign the paper, but does the engineer understand that when that house blows in my yard and tears my house up, that
Right.
he's the one responsible for it?
Right. So the only way to answer your question is if we spend some more time and get some more, I'll say, certified information. I'm using the wrong word, sorry. But I agree with that. I mean, I'll have to say that part of my issues all along have been, are they really safe? And, I suspect they are to a certain degree, but at, wind loads of 150 or 150 or more. I mean,
The
if they
weakest
meant-
link is what's gonna be exposed there.
Right.
And that's gonna most likely be the method of how it was tied down.
Right,
'Cause
right.
It probably came from the factory ready to go and be, meets all of its requirements, but
Yeah, but
how
the-
has it been tied down?
Yeah.
That porch we made it put on.
Yeah.
Right, and that's why the only way to get away from that is, in this situation, for these zoning districts, is to say they have to go off frame, and if you want to stay on frame, then here are other places you can go.
Well, and, I think staff's looking for direction, assemblage is looking for direction from us, so, I think we have a huge percentage of where we're agreeable.
Yeah.
With the exception of that one item on the roof plane changes, and that requirement of it being dormers are offset. And so, Mr. Chair, however you want to doctor that language, but, the only thing I would say that I'd want to see back is the discussion, about, making the removal of the, wheels, or that whole, I don't know if you're snatching out axles or if you're taking off wheels. I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And then does it become a situation where now, it's X number of piles per square feet on, a linear wall? I don't know.
Right.
That's how it gets tied in. I don't know. But I don't pretend to be an engineer, and, so I don't even want to get in that game.
I would love a motion on that, Commissioner Turner. I think we're at the same place.
Okay, make a motion to approve, items as presented by staff, with the exception to the one, on the roof plane changes being, to where, we'll err on the side of, the contractors on that one, Ms. Emily.
On the
So-
dormer?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
Second.
page 6.
And the roof front entry,
Yes, ma'am.
here I go.
And did it have to come off the flat, off the wheels?
Well, that's part of the one he was asking about as far as how they're actually put in, how the foundation's actually tied in.
So I need direction on that. Do you want me to hold off on pursuing anything until we get more information on that,
Yeah, I think so.
on taking it off frame?
Yeah, I'd love to see what you actually find, because if you do visit, Okeechobee County and or DeSoto, and find that one is doing it and the other's not, and that there is really no, do they have any history? Did these things go through the storms? Did they end up seeing some foundation shift? What happened exactly? And then, maybe that's one of the situations, Ms. Emlis, where you are taking a field trip and you're seeing how are they actually doing the tie-down process, or they're submitting something to you electronically to show you what they are actually requiring, and you can see a photo timeline associated of how it looks, And then what you think is utopia from that point moving forward, because, I don't,
Yeah, you've done a lot of good work on this, but we're not picking on you. We're just putting a few outputs out there, and Wheeler Estates is very happy with this. You and I both know that. We've sat in the meetings with them, so. It's
I
just-
don't feel like you're picking on me.
It won't be a one-size-fits-all, because they're gonna be very happy with what you have, so. Well, you said I was looking at you a while ago, so I'm not gonna look at you no more.
Okay. Well, you're going to have to. We've got a few more items to go over after this. So to conclude, you agree with the list of requirements that the contractors agreed with?
for example, you said they want an attached garage or an attached carport.
No.
Agreed.
I agreed to it. They wanted it to be optional.
Oh, okay.
So-
I thought, man, that's a crazy one that runs up.
No. The optionals are the garage, carport,
Okay.
plane changes.
Take us to the page where they agree.
Yeah.
It's just 5 and 4, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're gonna do that pitch, 412 pitch. Everybody's cool with that.
Everybody, yeah.
Everybody's good with a minimum 10-inch overhang, which includes gutters, which is comical, but okay. Then they got to have one of the sidings that can't just be bare brick.
Right.
Decorative window trim and/or shutters, and then a home with a raised foundation. That there's going to be, during the process, there's going to be an agreed upon finish.
Not bare block.
Yep, that will match up with what that 16 inches of raised block comes into versus the siding of the
Right.
home.
Right.
It'll match up.
And we'd shown you an
Yes,
example
ma'am,
of that.
I remember that. And then, the raised foundation, there has to be an 8x8 porch,
Most of the time.
thereabout, some sort, banister on the walkway, all that ties in, that's gonna look good. And then, foundations that are gonna have steel wall and, monolithic concrete slab, piered foundation, so on and so forth. Those are the ones that are, everybody's solid on.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Do you ever, Margaret, do you ever have any problem with the driveways? I noticed in Port LaBelle, a lot of them's putting in concrete driveways.
Yes,
They just doing that on their own?
correct. And we don't have a requirement for driveways. That's why I mentioned, kind of on the side, that we should start looking at some minimum site improvement
Yeah, I
requirements.
think you should, especially on driveways.
And then on the items on page 6, basically all of those will be nixed.
Correct.
So horizontal banding, we're not worried about them having a stripe on their house. It could be orange, but we don't want a stripe on it, right?
Right.
A roof front entry, not necessary. Roof plane changes, and then attached garage or attached carport.
Those will all go off the list.
Now, you're gonna leave them on there as things that the contractor should consider.
Well, we could
And
put
these
that
are
on
things
as
that Henry County, we
optional.
would love for you to
It's not,
check out.
it's not typical that you put in the land development code
Be a lot
optional
cooler if you
items.
did, so, all right.
Pardon me?
I said, be a lot cooler if you did.
Okay,
Like you
we
said,
could, we
that's
could
an
put it
option.
in there, it's
Yeah.
A lot
just,
of folks will be able to do that. They'll,
Yeah.
you know, they'll see that and say, hey, I want the carport, I want the, you know, but just some of them may not be able to do that, that's all.
I mean, is it crazy to say we want to encourage landscaping, we want to encourage these things?
not at all. I mean,
Most
it's,
places do.
yeah,
Driveways and.
Wired in many places.
yes. And I'll work on those, but I wanted to get this going before I.
And listen, I'm the anti-landscaping commissioner, I hate it, I don't understand it, it seems asinine to me, but we've got to start doing something with the concept of mature trees and just not nuking an entire piece of dirt.
Exactly.
Because
I-
that, not only does it sadden me,
Yes.
but it just, we have a lot, I mean, there's a lot of investment that we're missing out whenever we allow people to snatch those trees out and grind them up and be done.
And there's a lot of good examples out there on regulations for that.
Yeah.
It's,
I wish I could go back in my time capsule and be able to know what I know now and be able to, as we move 80 expansion, not allow for them to have done what they did. That we should have gotten every news outlet on the planet involved in that discussion and saved a ton of mature oak trees and other stuff that's indigenous to
Well-
the state of Florida as you ease out of town here.
Both
If-
entrances here would have been very nice. yeah.
Man, we messed up bad
well,
there.
if you're
you know.
patient, we'll have more landscaping as State Road 80 US 27 is developed.
I have no patience. So,
All right.
okay.
Yes, sir.
So we got a motion by Commissioner Turner, second by Commissioner Harris. Is there any further discussion on this?
Just to be clear, you're just directing staff to bring back an ordinance that will be in front of you for a public hearing. You're really not, you can't adopt it tonight because this is
Right.
not it.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Do we still need to take action on it?
To
We got a
give the
motion and a
direction to
second.
staff.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're stuck with us. Public hearings. Tonight, petition number RZ 19-0004.
0004.
Sir, just as a reminder, we were looking at moving one of the items up.
Yes, ma'am. We could do that. That way these folks aren't here all night.
And do you want to introduce it?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Swindler, are you making it warmer? Thank you, man. This thing hang meat in here.
I'm about to freeze.
Good Lord.
You do it for
I think
you.
Shane turned it down earlier. Ms. Evans, that's Rio's, correct?
Yes, sir. It's public hearing petition C. You want to announce that? I don't think everybody heard.
Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to move C to the top. Petition C, which is RZ 17. They've asking for continuance, but we had folks that live in the area that'd like to come speak tonight. And in order to move this to Clewiston, I asked that we'd give them time to speak tonight. Did not want to move something to Clewiston that was going to affect LaBelle without them having an opportunity to speak. So
Yes.
if we could do that tonight, I would really
Okay.
appreciate it.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, and let me just generally introduce that this is a plan unit development rezoning. And the concerns of primarily the Riverbend Motor Coach Resort has is with some of the uses that were originally being proposed. So we converted this into a plan unit development so that we could properly condition what types of uses would be permitted and to ensure that proper buffering and is applied and that the State Road 80 overlay requirements are complied with. And so we're working with, we've asked the applicant to work with the Riverbend community and their attorney representing them as well to come up with something that they can agree upon. That may or may not happen. They may have some disagreements at the end of the day, but we wanted to make sure that we could say that they had reviewed it and had final comments.
Thank you, Ms. Evans.
Thank you. I'm going to sit down.
The first one up is going to be Mr. Brody. I just got these kind of stuck in line here, so we'll call you as we go along. If you would, when you come up, please state your name, and that way it goes on the recording, please, sir.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Clifford Brody. I'm a full-time resident in Hendry County and a registered voter. My background is such that I have some experience with zoning matters, having been elected council person and also serving a term as vice mayor and also served as acting director of zoning for about 6 months during a transition period when we moved from a county to a city operation. The village or city of Key Biscayne has a population of about 14,000 and is a full-service city with all departments from building and zoning to recreation to full-time paid police, fire, and rescue. The Rios property is a problem for a regulatory body. Given a plain piece of paper, most would agree a business like theirs belongs in an industrial area found around the airport, perhaps. But the Rios have operated their business for a number of years on the property where they live with little or no problem with the neighbors or the county in general. Recently, 3 things happened. The county has noted the Rios are not complying with the zoning that they have. They put the property up for sale, and they wish to expand the scope of their operation. The only commercial zoning category that would allow this is C3. The neighbors, including myself, object to this because it just allows too intense commercial development in the middle of a residential and agricultural area, an area that has a great future for the development of high-end residential communities, which is recognized in the future land use designation. It was actually my suggestion that they change their application from C3 to a planned unit development to see if a compromise could be reached to allow them to continue their family business without opening the door to intense commercial development. To this end, the Rios have put together a rezoning request for the PUD that included a plan for how the business would be laid out, what activities would occur, and where they would be located. This resulted in considerable back and forth between the Rios and the neighbors and the zoning department, which has resulted in either agreement or near agreement as far as the family business is concerned. But here's why the application should be denied. and returned to the zoning department to be reworked and resubmitted. According to the plan they submitted, they need approximately 5 or 6 conditions or types of business that they need to continue and expand their business. But they've also included no less than 18 conditions that would ordinarily require a C2 or C3 zoning, for which they have presented no plan whatsoever for how these conditions would operate or be laid out on the property. Some of them are totally incompatible with their own plan. How could you possibly operate a theater or auditorium or a shopping center or a motel, hotel, or a funeral home with an hours of operation 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday? This doesn't even make sense. They are asking for permission to operate a veterinarian office with outdoor kennels on a property that comes within 100 feet of established residential property with people actually living there, yet there is no plan as to where, I just have a couple of words left, where these kennels would be located, nor could they work with the hours that they have agreed to. The Rios property is exactly where a PUD works. The business they want to operate does not really fit where they want to operate it, but if they do it as a planned unit development, show exactly what, how, and where it would operate, maybe under correct circumstances, it could work. But what they put forward with the 18 on-plan conditions is really a de facto request for a C3 zoning. There is universal agreement among the neighbors and the zoning department that C3 zoning is not appropriate. Please send this back to the beginning, giving the Rioses an opportunity to put something forward that will work. If they stick to just their business plan, I feel confident that something can be worked out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Brody. Ms. Brody?
Oh, yeah, perfect.
Folks, we ask you to try to stay as close to the 3-minute mark as possible.
He talks a lot.
Lots of.
Thank you. We bought our
State your name,
beautiful.
please, ma'am.
Oh, I'm sorry, Sally Brody. We bought our beautiful lot at Riverbend in August of 2018. One of the reasons we decided to leave the Miami area was to go someplace where it wasn't so busy, so overbuilt. We were looking for a semi-country area, and we found Riverbend here in Hendry County to live in a quiet, less developed area. Please do not approve the PUD zoning that includes many objectionable C2 and C3 zoning that have nothing to do with the business that the Rioses wish to continue. These undesirable and unnecessary activities will surely lead to too much development on the riverside of State Road 80. These C2, C3 activities would make Riverbend no longer the quiet, country-like area it is today. Riverbend is mainly a retirement community. This lifestyle permits lots of time for us volunteers in the community. The volunteers and volunteer we do. I personally volunteer several hours a week, and a dozen other residents do at Country Oak School, and others volunteer at the LaBelle schools. Many residents volunteer their time and donate funds to make fidget blankets for Alzheimer's and dementia patients, boards and lap blankets to stimulate and focus the dementia and Alzheimer residents in LaBelle Nursing Home and also Fort Myers. Many of the ladies made material bags to give to the shelter residents. Just recently, Riverbend donated $3,000 to the Backpack Project for the LaBelle students. We also support many fundraisers in Hendry County. Lots of Riverbend residents attend the churches, American Legion, fire, theater, stores, restaurants, leaving our hard-earned money in this town, this community. We all love the activities of Riverbend in the community. It keeps us young and busy. Most of us have the means to live almost anywhere, but we live here because we want to and we love it here. Don't let overdevelopment drive us away. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brody. Ms. Inskeep? Yeah, she nailed that, didn't she? And she said good luck. I thought was, you know.
For the record, my name is Jennifer Inskeep. You all have received a letter from me about how I feel about Riverbend and Hendry County. I'm a full-time resident, a registered voter. I love it here. After 44 years in Lee County, it's heaven. Thank you. I'm changing tact here a little bit. I have some concerns that need to be addressed. I think prior to proceeding with this with the proposal. One is tidying up the property. And what I mean is what is going to be done with all the vehicles that are now on there when they start developing. I, without trespassing, took pictures from 80 and from the church parking lot Sunday, and I count 38 different vehicles on that property. It looks like a junkyard back in the back. That concerns me. They are against code. They've had 2 code violations. The first August of 2016, complaint number 160705, and they were directed to abate or remedy the violation no later than February 2nd of 2017. Hasn't been done. Then they had another one, January 19th, 2017, that stated if the county goes to hearing and obtains a finding of violation, you may be responsible for the costs of prosecution, even if the violation is abated prior to hearing. I am respectfully suggesting that the foregoing, if you proceed with this, the foregoing costs of such prosecution be exonerated if the violations are abated or remedied prior to final approval of the PUD, or not later than July 1st, whichever comes first. The Rioses have been good neighbors. They're quiet. We're not against that at all. We're just against the mess and the noise. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Ms. Pride?
Mr. Chair, it's zoned what currently?
What is the zoning as of right now, Ms. English? A2?
A2.
Good evening. I'm Cindy Pride. In 2016, I will have to admit I'm a newcomer here. In 2016, my husband and I wandered over to Riverbend to check it out. We're motorhomers, and we loved it. And we came into LaBelle to see, what's LaBelle like? And we had lunch, and we drove around the streets of LaBelle, and we fell in love. 2017, we decided to stay for a month, and we bought a lot. It happens a lot at Riverbend. It's a wonderful community. We sold our home. We became residents of Hendry County. We're registered voters, and we have homestead exemption now. I'm active in the community. I've adopted LaBelle. I participate in a variety of things in the town. I eat at restaurants. I go to the community theater and different community events. I'm also active in the Riverbend community. I am the president of the Riverbend Creations Guild, a group of 77 women and 1 man who do different arts and crafts, and we raise money for programs in LaBelle this year, or support programs in LaBelle. This year we raised $3,000, as Sally said, for the Operation Backpack program. Over 70% of the children in LaBelle get bags of food to take home on weekends, and our $3,000 would actually only pay for 3 weekends of service. And so we are trying to upscale that for next year. We also support the ACT Women's Shelter. We've been doing that for years. We check with the directors to find out what the women's needs are. We hold collection drives. This year we did a lot of bedding, towels, toiletries, and clothing. And we also bought Christmas presents for the 11 children and 8 women that were in the shelter at Christmas this year. Sally also mentioned the fidget quilts. This is a new program this year that she brought to the community. The women worked to sew these blankets or aprons that have objects on them that encourage people with Alzheimer's to, it calms them down, gives them something to work with. We also had Some men work on fidget boards for the guys with knobs and handles and things to turn and mess with, guy things. I respect a property owner's rights to conduct business and to work on their property as long as it doesn't impact other people. And I respect you for letting us speak tonight and hope that you commissioners and the county officials will carefully consider the impact of zoning changes on all the neighboring properties, not just Riverbend, but anywhere in the county. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Mr. Blodgett? I may have messed that up, so you can correct me. Okay, I didn't see that. Thank you, sir. Ms. Gross?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Doreen Gross. We moved from the north and came down about 4.5 years ago. When we retired, we bought a motorhome. Motorhome is defined as a bus with little slides that come out. So you end up with a New York apartment.
A nice New York.
Yeah,
Nice, yeah.
that mini
Upscale
house
New
you were
York.
talking about, Mr. Wells.
There you go.
Anyway, we've traveled all around the country. We've enjoyed everything. And finally, we got to the point where we decided we need to sit down for a while. We looked at a bunch of places in Florida. We looked in Texas. We looked at Arizona. And then somebody said to us, why don't you go a little further down? We thought, oh, I'm not so sure we want to do that. Here's the reason why. My husband's folks retired to Florida about in 1974. So we're very familiar with all the changes that have been made in the growth and the development. And in some cases, how poorly it's gone. And when I heard it was near Fort Myers, we both looked at each other, and being from New Hampshire, where it's very rural, and we just said, Fort Myers with all the crime and corruption that's going on down there, maybe not. We came down, drove in, our jaws dropped. We realized we were in paradise. The agrarian economy that exists around here is absolutely gorgeous. The people couldn't be more friendly, all the way from those that took care of us with our driver's license, enrolled us in to be part of the community, to the dentists that we go to the doctors that we visit, unfortunately, too frequently now. But everybody has been wonderful. The only thing I can say about it is living in Riverbend has become a very philanthropic venture that I never expected that we would ever have in a 5-star resort. We love being able to do things, raise money for the people in the community, to help in every way we possibly can. We enjoy the birds singing in the morning. We enjoy the water lapping up when we go down to the river. We enjoy the little lakes that we have in there, and we want to keep it that way. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay.
I had other forms that I saw that did not wish to speak. So is there anyone else who would like to speak to this before we move on? Come up and state your name, please, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Wills. My name is Fred Depke. I did put a request in.
I saw it did not want to speak, so.
Oh, I saw that. I scratched that out. I said, well, why not? Real
good.
short and sweet about this. I'm one of those that didn't come as far away as the Brodies from Miami or Key Biscayne. I came from Cape Coral. I moved down 7 years ago. I've lived all over the country. I wanted peace and quiet. I'm a Marine Corps Vietnam veteran. To me, having some peace and quiet in the country along the river made a lot of sense. In Cape Coral, to be able to store a motorhome is expensive. You couldn't use it. So I looked around and I found Riverbend. And for the same reasons that you've heard earlier, we love it here. And we can't do without all the services that you provide. If it wasn't for the Parrish family, my wife wouldn't walk right now or see as well. But we thank you for hosting us, and we know that we're a big tax base for you. We know that we, swing a lot of weight with you all budget-wise, and we respect the fact that you're making the right decisions for our future. Noise is a big issue on 80. The closer you are to 80, all hours of the night, it's possible to hear what's going on with the traffic going by. I live almost to the river. I chose that intentionally. We all live here for different reasons in different places, but we've come from all over, literally all over the world. We've got people from South Africa with us even here. So all across England and so on. So thank you very much. I don't want to rehash what you've already heard, but I only came 30 miles away to leave my home, and we did sell our house. It didn't make sense to hold a home and be on the road and enjoy Riverbend as much as we could. So that's gone. We're here. I'm a homestead veteran, paying my taxes and enjoying your county very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We had one more?
Good evening, Sarah Spector. I'm an attorney with Retzel and Andrus on behalf of the association. I apologize for not submitting a card. I'm actually a party intervener in this matter, so it was my understanding that I didn't need to be able to speak.
Oh, you're fine.
Okay, perfect. You've heard from several of the residents. I'm here, as I noted, on behalf of the association. The condominium association. We have been working with the applicant and with county staff for some time now, since they originally submitted their rezoning application from the agricultural to the C3, and it was recognized that many of the uses within the C3 category are too intense for that property, which does abut the Riverbend property. So we have been working with them with the PUD. One of the speakers earlier had mentioned a reference to 18 uses that they're asking for. Those uses are actually uses that the board of the association does support. The association does support the plan now as it has been revised, provided that that is the plan that is submitted when it goes before you on June 18th. The master concept plan as revised and the ordinance as revised does further limit the uses that would be permitted to exclude the uses that are objectionable to the board. Those are the general reference to trucking was an issue because it's not defined in the code. They have now said that they would limit it to the trucking that is on the property as it exists today. They have specifically prohibited truck stops, which was the major concern of the association. And they have also specifically prohibited vehicle sales, which was another use that we had concern with that would be allowed on their list of uses. They have also added back in a Type C buffer along the western property border, which was something that we had disagreed with when they had proposed a Type A buffer. So they have put in the buffer that we requested. And they've also agreed to put an opaque screen around any outdoor storage that is on the lot until they put the indoor storage on the north and western perimeter. Provided that this is what is presented to you on the 18th, this is something that the association and its elected board would support as a whole. The one thing I would request, and I haven't actually presented this to either staff or to the applicant yet, but I would ask that you consider, in light of many of the comments that were made here tonight, is if any of the uses that are on the list that are not shown on the concept plan are uses that they would like to put into place at some time in the future. We understand they're permitted uses. We would ask that any changes to the concept plan to put those uses into action would be done at a public hearing rather than by an administrative process. Provided that is the case and nothing else changes between now and then, I think that this is still something we will support, and I'll be there next month to put that on the record again.
Hey, very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Assemblage, do you have anything to close with? I appreciate everyone coming tonight. I got a chance to meet a couple of you the other day. It was very nice. And in the future, give me a call. I'll be glad to come out and visit with you, especially in your tiny home. I like buses. But thank you for coming tonight. I believe we have direction. My biggest concern, as most of you know, I really like LaBelle business handled in LaBelle. And in this, going forward, we had asked if this was going to be acceptable, and I said as long as the members of the Riverbend community and their representation was on board and we could have moved forward, that we would. And that would have been my only setback, ladies and gentlemen of the board. So, thank you, Ms. Emlich. You want to close us on that?
Just to reiterate that this will be, well, let me back up. Staff and the applicant will work to finalize any of the proposed uses in the site plan. And I'm not sure that we've seen the latest edition of either one. But regardless, we will be writing a staff report to support what the consensus is. And again, if there's some disagreement, that'll be presented as well. And again, it'll be continued to the June 18th board meeting at the City Hall in Clewiston at 5 o'clock.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Emlich, for all your work. This is a request for continuance, Mr. Lapp. We need to conduct this as a regular
Yes.
public meeting.
Yeah.
Right, you've already heard public comment, but you can invite any more that they may have,
Okay,
and
and then
then
we can move
vote to
forward.
formally continue.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to address this tonight?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to formally continue it to June 18th, 2019, time certain in Clewiston.
Second the motion.
Motion by Commissioner Turner, second by Commissioner Swindles. Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Emlich. We'll go back to the top now, which is RZ 19-0004.
Yes, Commissioners, this is a mining PUD, and it's actually for the removal of dirt in existing reservoirs for a grove operation. And because of the amount of dirt to be excavated, and they cannot stockpile it on site without interfering with the grove operation. So they requested to be able to sell it off-site. And so with that,
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have corrections to make, of course. Thank you, Mr. Lapp. Sorry. Anyway, but I needed to note for the record that we did have a meeting with the Felda Community Association, and they were supportive of the project as long as the traffic was properly managed. And the applicant promised that we'd make sure, and of course, staff will hear the complaints if something happens as well and take care of that. So the corrections is that on page 3A of the ordinance, the 3A is regarding the duration of approval. The way that it's stated here in the ordinance is the correct language. The discussion in the staff report was dated, and so it's not appropriate. So it's just to note that the ordinance that you have in front of you is correct. And in addition to that, no, I'm sorry, it's not correct. The first condition of the ordinance is to be revised to the site plan date is supposed to be April 4th, not March 11th, as it is on the ordinance. So I misspoke. The ordinance needs to be amended to reflect that, and I understand that the ordinance to be signed is correct.
I still second it.
We need to amend the motion, or
I think
As presented.
as presented? Okay. This is a public hearing. If there's anyone here who would like to address this tonight. Seeing none, the meeting in Felda went very well. The applicant was more than able to meet any questions and concerns that night, so I believe it's a good project. I'm going to call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Emlich.
You're welcome.
Lost my notes. Again, it's not my eyes. Petition number CPA 19-0001.
Whoops. There's B is.
Oh, I missed one.
Yes, sir.
We can make him wait. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Petition number RZ 19-0006.
Yes, Commissioners, this is a request to rezone a A2 zone property that is 7.52 plus or minus acres to the RG3 zoning district, which is similar to the surrounding properties that are zoned RG3. The intent of the applicant is that in addition to his existing home on the property, he would like to split the property so that there would be 3 parcels that would exceed the required minimum lot size, but so that 2 additional homes could be built on the property.
I move to
Second.
request rezone.
A motion by Commissioner Harris, second by Commissioner Byrd. This is also a hearing of the public. Does anyone in the public would like to address this? Seeing none, is there any further conversation on the board?
Mr. Chairman, this is just old fallow dirt that's been sitting there for quite some time. It's gonna get something done on it, right?
Yes, sir.
Build houses.
Kudos to everyone involved.
Okay, all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Oh, shoot.
Now, CPA-19-0001.
Yes, Commissioners, this this comp plan amendment is specific to the Wheeler Estates property. You've seen this before you for the transmittal hearing, and it's gone through the state plan review process with no comments from any state reviewing agencies. And so at this time, this is the adoption hearing for the comprehensive plan amendment that would revise the text and map of the comp plan to include the revisions that apply to Wheeler Estates.
You and your constituents happy with it, Commissioner Wills?
Yes, sir. They are very happy. As we said earlier, we've had quite a few community meetings,
Oh.
and everyone's went well, so.
Oh, and excuse me, thank you for reminding me. There's some amended language on the ordinance on page 3 at the bottom under agricultural uses. The second bullet needs to read, and I'll read in its entirety. Agricultural uses consisting predominantly of the cultivation of crops and livestock, including cropland, pasture land, orchards, vineyards, nurseries, ornamental horticulture, groves, confined feeding operations, and specialty farms are permitted by right or allowed by special exception on the existing agriculturally zoned lands only as set forth in section 153-3.7.1 of the Land Development Code. So that would be, it was missing language. It's not new. Pardon me?
Ms. Maurer showed us something right before we started. I think that's what that was.
That is.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, do we have a motion on that?
So moved.
A motion by Commissioner Harris, second by Commissioner Byrd. This is also a public hearing. Is anyone in the public would like to speak to this? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay. This next agenda item. Did you want to introduce it?
Yes,
or do you want me
ma'am.
to?
Petition, I don't have anything there. I see an applicant's request, Henry County Board of County Commissioners.
Where,
I'm going from D to E. There's nothing on my E.
nothing on your E?
No, ma'am, my E is
Blank?
Public hearing adoption, that one?
All right, well, E is a public hearing for adoption for the amendment to the Hendry County Code of Ordinances. And this is specific to Wheeler Estates. And what the amendment establishes, the rural residential Wheeler Estates zoning district, along with specific regulations that apply to only the Wheeler Estates community. If you would like me to go into detail on what those are, I'd be happy to do that. But This-
Everybody okay? I move to accept.
Do I have
Second.
any changes on that one?
Motion by Commissioner Harris, second by Commissioner Turner. It's also a public hearing. Anyone in the public like to address this? Seeing none, any further discussion on the board? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right.
Next
Okay.
petition, RZ 19-0003. They give me
Yes.
that one.
There you go. And this is another petition that applies to the Wheeler Estates community. And this is the first reading, so no action is necessary. It will be heard at the June 18th meeting in Clewiston for public hearing and final adoption. The request is to rezone only those properties, it's 1,707 acres approximately, that are currently zoned A3 and residential low density to the new zoning district, rural residential Wheeler Estates. So again, there's no action necessary. This is just the first reading.
Thank you very much, Ms. Emily.
RRWE. I like it.
Okay, I think you're done with me right now.
Mr. Lapp?
It is a public hearing, so if, on that,
Okay,
on that.
even though we're not taking action?
That's correct, it is a public hearing, so.
Okay, if there's anyone in the public like to speak to this tonight? So we don't require motion. All right, thank you very much.
Okay, ready for the next item? This is
Yes,
the
sir.
amendments to the procurement ordinance. We've had a procurement ordinance on the books now for about 3 years, and as it's currently exists, everything about our procurement is in the ordinance. And to provide us with some greater flexibility to make changes when necessary, the main change that is occurring here is to take the text that governs the county's operations, staff and board steps and procedures for procurement, and put those, take them out of the ordinance and put them in a policy that's adopted by resolution, and then leave in the ordinance provisions that members of the public or vendors have to comply with. So that's the main change. This gives you more flexibility to make changes when you need to. Some other changes that are being made in the ordinance now are to add provisions governing design build contracts, which state law requires us to have an ordinance. It allows you to procure services from fellow governments without any kind of procurement process. Doesn't have to go through bidding or anything. You can just contract with another government if you want them to do the service. An example of that is we're hiring the sheriff's office to do the security at the courthouse. That would be an example of where you're contracting with another government to do a service for us. Raising the dollar threshold for no bidding and no quoting from $250 to $500. Just staff were finding that it was requiring too much paperwork for small dollar impact. Generally, it's still going to have contracts for the services greater than $2,500 and products greater than $10,000, but to allow a purchase order instead of a contract based on a determination by me that the risk of default is slim, and it just would be more streamlined not to have a 6 or 8 or 10-page contract. A PO would be more efficient. And then also to specify that for vehicle and equipment repair, no formal process is required, that staff would just use their best judgment to obtain the best price, because we found that it just was infeasible to have pre-packaged pricing for that. So with that, we ask that you approve or conduct public hearing, adopt the proposed ordinance, and then, or the ordinance amendment, and then also separately adopt the resolution which has the procurement policies that are in it.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion as to that?
So move.
Motion by Commissioner Harris, second by Commissioner Byrd. This is also a public hearing. Is anyone in the public who would like to speak to this tonight? I believe moving forward, this is going to help staff a lot. I've been on the other end of that, and it's very frustrating when your hands are tied and you really need to get something done, so. Very good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Lapp. Correspondence under FYI, you guys see that? Staff reports.
Wait, can I make a comment on FYI?
Nope.
Man,
Got 3 minutes.
Absolutely, Commissioner.
really quick, great job. I really appreciate Ms. Papanoff putting where we are monetarily with the FEMA reimbursements. That's great. I love to see that. I really appreciate that. Quick question with it though: are we at a point where we can bill the cities for owed?
There's no need to, because we just got, I think in a couple meetings ago, we put as FYI, we got the waiver. So we are not going to be required to match any of those debris dollars.
Okay.
And so, I think Kelly and the
Awesome.
engineering department will verify, because there's certain time frames where the waiver applies 100% and so forth. But we feel right now that there's not going to be billing.
That'd be a blessing to everyone. I would love to see that. I hope
Verify
that
that
pans
and then notify them of that.
So what
out. Okay.
year?
Well, we don't have it yet.
No,
tell 'em.
we have the waiver, and so I verbally told them.
We can't put money back with a waiver.
I hear what you're saying.
What year will we get the money?
I'm sorry.
What year?
2042 is my guess.
We've got $111,000 to date. None of that money is debris money. Those are very specific projects that she outlined on this update, but we're going to keep updating this report as we get the money in, so you'll know where we are.
Didn't the ag get all their money? Citrus? They had a big write-up in the paper, I think, yesterday.
Where they got some money?
Yeah. But they didn't get what they told them they was gonna get.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
cut
yeah.
it.
Imagine that. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, anything further? We did get that letter from the Moorhaven FFA, and I thought they've done an amazing job. Has anyone heard how have they moved forward, or
I've not heard.
I'm not heard.
I've not heard.
not heard? I thought they did an amazing job, so. Brings us to staff reports, Ms. Davis.
Item is assemblage, and it's in regards to a special magistrate.
Another project that we're bringing to a head here, Commissioners, and that is staff is recommending that the county move to a special magistrate process for our code enforcement. Not to say that the Judge Hill is doing a fantastic job. We just want to be able to accommodate our volume at this point, and if at some point that the county's looking fantastic and things have slowed down, we may go back to the courts, but at this point in time, we're recommending that we pursue a special magistrate in the process involved with it, which would require us going out for an RFP for that position. And there would be some land development code amendments that we would have to include as well, so that we're totally.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the special magistrate process, advertising, and amend the LDC as needed, with one caveat. I would also ask that staff reach out to the city of Moorhaven, Glades County, city of Clueston, and city of LaBelle to get educated to the utmost abilities on what their special magistrate process is, and to let us know via their conversation what their interest is in engaging in this process as well.
Spoke with Glades County, and they said they didn't have one as of I asked
Right.
this week. So
I heard from them as well, and they were not pursuing special magistrate, and we're not interested at this point.
City of Moorhaven isn't either?
I didn't hear that one.
Okay.
Did,
If you could.
Okay,
and-
Moorhaven,
Yes, ma'am.
Clueston, LaBelle?
Yes, ma'am.
So the judge will still do his part, both will do, the judge and the special magistrate?
No, we will be only special magistrate
Oh.
going forward.
Why would you do that? I mean, why wouldn't you let the judge?
Let there be light. Why would we do that?
Yeah, why wouldn't the judge do, if you let both of them do it?
Well, the special magistrate, the reason for going to that is we can get him any time, and he'll be able to expedite what we have now.
When it came time for the judge, boom, and then.
I'm afraid that would become too confusing for everybody to have one or have both processes at this point. We've got enough expectations for our code enforcement officers as it is, but I don't think it would be an efficient process by having both.
Not to throw fuel on the fire, but I sat sitting there speaking with several of the counties. They're doing exactly what you're talking about. They're not doing the mowing. They're not doing none of that. So in the future, that's probably something we do need to look at, Commissioner. I spoke with them this week. Actually, this week was amazing classes, so we got a little more one-on-one time.
Up in Gainesville?
Yes, and we'll talk a little more about that in a moment, but this did get brought up in discussion, and they were saying they're not doing none of that, so the special magistrate will be definitely a topic to look at, and actually what services we are providing at our cost.
May I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Sir. So, as a board or as a county, what will be our markers of success by doing this? How are we going to measure that this change and this extra expense and exercise has been valuable above what we're currently doing? And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just want to make sure that I understand what our expectations are as we move forward with this.
Well, if I may, and I know that Jennifer has some comments to that effect, we're already seeing a ripple effect of compliance with folks by our current process, but that has nothing to do whether judge or special magistrate. It's how code enforcement is operating as far as their approach to posting and sending letters of violation and getting people's attention, leaving door hangers on properties that have a little bit of an issue that include not just what they are pamphlets with information, but we also provide the 211 card with it as well, so that if they have other issues, that we've given them the information or contact information for that. And so again, we've been able to, I'll say, more proactively be out in the field, and again, we're seeing a ripple effect about that. Now, to answer your question, I think it's going to become obvious at some point where we're going to have a certain amount of compliance that our main issues will be minimized. I will never promise that they're all going to go away, but they will be minimized, and I think that again, I just think it's going to be an obvious to all of us.
So you have volume and you have time, and so when you're going through the court system, you're going through the court dockets, and the judge is already full with his docket, seeing everything, and so our code cases are piling up, and so our volume is increasing exponentially. And so when you have so much volume, and of course we're seeing some compliance, though, hopefully, and as time goes by, that's going to be more so before it gets to the court case, if you will, or to the magistrate, but that's going to take some time for that to happen. You're going to be able to hear those cases quicker, and you're going to get compliance quicker, and so it's time. And so time is important for everyone to seek compliance at a greater pace.
Okay.
So I would ask, what would happen, what's different if they don't comply now and then with the special magistrate? What's the difference? What would cause them to comply now?
That's a great question.
Well, the current process is such that they, again, they get a letter of violation, they get 30 days to comply, and then if they don't comply, they get a subpoena to go to court. They go to court, and they'll get certain fines at that point, or court costs that are paid, and then they'll be given a certain amount of time to comply after that. And if they don't, we take them right back to the judge. And then at that point in time, what we've been working on, this is new, is to look at some additional fines, including daily fines at that second hearing. So that's how it's working now. The special magistrate, did you want to correct something?
Oh, and just that's for the everything but mowing and junk
Right.
and demolitions.
Yes.
Which go a totally different path now, and the special magistrate will be a big change.
Yes, and thank you. And right now with the mowing and demolition, we're paying to have those done on vacant parcels, and going to the difference going to the magistrate is that we would not be doing those mowings or those demolitions. We would have to rely on the special magistrate process and compliance by the property owner. at some point in time, as I mentioned in my staff report, the magistrate can direct the county to abate the situation, mowing or demo, if it becomes a true nuisance and safety issue, which is why I've recommended previously to leave some money in the coffers so that we can take care of those situations when they come up. But I just, overall, I'll say that we're going to have mowing violations that are going to be going on a little bit longer, grass getting a little bit higher, getting to the point where it's going to be a brush hog instead of a lawnmower. But let's hope it doesn't. But that's the, I'll say, worst case scenario.
But that's what I'm asking. If they don't comply, what happens to them then?
We'd have to mow it.
They-
You have fines, right?
Right.
And liens.
You have fines and liens.
And at some point in time, you could potentially foreclose on those fines and or liens. Is that correct?
Be on the property.
What will happen is theoretically, what will happen is that the special magistrate, that process should occur a little bit faster. There should be less of an overhead expenditure realized by the county as it relates towards bringing said violator into compliance. In the event the violator is still not brought into compliance via the special magistrate, we have resources set aside to go ahead and implement the process of bringing them into compliance, which is still going to make the tab continue to accrue dollars on top of that. And then in the event they go back before the special magistrate, now we have the ability to exercise a little bit more of an aggressive posture and say, okay, we're going to start the process of acquisition of your property and or you'll come into compliance.
That's what I was asking.
You can
Okay.
do that with mowing, Mark?
Well, you definitely can order the mowing. You can definitely order fines, or the special magistrate can. As far as the work, the special magistrate ordering us or authorizing us to do the work, he has to find that it's a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare in order to authorize us to go on to do the work ourselves, which would be clear in the case of an unsafe building. We're going to have to talk about whether that case can be made for grass that's, just 2 or 3 feet high. Is that a threat to the public health, safety, and welfare?
Yeah, and I think that's an easy process for staff to be able to prove. I mean, hopefully, Ms. Bird, I think that we're looking at a situation now where, a person has a lot that's head high or above, because they haven't mowed their grass in a year, let's say, which is definitely a situation. I guarantee all of us have lots like that in our district with a structure on said property. Now I think that we're going to see the potential for not only that dirt to get dealt with, but I think we're going to see more situations where that property is condemned and or it's labeled an unsafe structure, and I think that we're going to see that demolition process get included a little bit more aggressively. I think that it will not ultimately result in a quick net win for the county, but I think you're going to see neighborhoods start to potentially change. You're going to see less blight on the long term.
Say, Mark, would that go back to the lien process or not?
You'll get a lien out of the special magistrate process, and then that is something that needs to be paid by the landowner if they want to have clear title and try voluntary compliance, and then do some foreclosures when the board deems it appropriate on particular properties.
I believe we have a motion on this. Commissioner, did you make a motion?
Yes, I did.
Yes.
Option 1.
Yes.
And we needed a second? Need a second.
I'll second the motion.
Second by Commissioner Swindle. Any further discussion on this topic?
What would you like to see from a report standpoint brought back in the periodic? How often? You want to see it quarterly?
Well, I mean, they almost do real-time stuff now, don't we? Every time, because every time we get our books, don't we see the amount of cases that were open, closed?
We haven't been doing those as regularly
Yeah.
but we will need time to get the special magistrate process
It'll take a while to
going.
set it up.
But we can provide you at any given time, if you'd like, for us to email you our reports.
Well, and I think we should, and I think you should, and I think that we should also pay close attention to them, Goes back to my question of what does success look like on this?
Absolutely,
And-
Commissioner, and that's where for me, I mean, I think that if we sit by and we don't request a periodic review that occurs, time certain it's going to be in that board packet.
Yeah.
What happens is ultimately, you know, not to dwell on issues, but you know, we get a color coded document that shows that there were 70 of them that were, you know, burned away with because their color rose or whatever. You know, I don't know what it is, and I just want to avoid that. I want to know that there's 31 items that are open today that are out there, or there's 3, and there's 103 that are coming online. And, you know, our 2 or our 5 code enforcement people, whatever that number is, they opened up X number of more as well, you know. And the focus was on the 29 corridor, whereas 6 weeks ago it was in Mid-State Loop and Hooker's Point, you know. And
Well, my whole line of questioning, and Commissioner Turner has done a great job. It's taken him a couple of years to beat it into my head at least about the seriousness of this. And if we're going to make such a change, such a system level change in what we're doing, I believe that it should pay very robust dividends. It shouldn't be we got 5% more or 10% more than what we used to be. This needs to be a robust difference that we can easily put a finger on. I don't like the words that may potentially do better, or we could potentially see, you know, more volume, and I don't like changing for the words potential and possibly and stuff like that.
I 100% agree, Commissioner.
Having said that, I think that I think this is a good move. It's the right move, and we should rally behind it and make sure that everyone has the tools they need in their quiver to make it happen. My first knee-jerk thing that I've got to say is I don't think you've got enough enforcement officers to help it. I think your folks are slammed to where they are today in the process. How are they going to do more because a magistrate can handle more? So I think that there are some obvious logistical things that need to be looked at where if we're really going to get a robust return, let's revamp the whole thing and let's make it a very, you know, robust way of looking at it and moving forward. I mean that in a loving way. I'm not looking at you.
You're looking at me.
It's a little sensitive.
Yeah, I know.
We have met with an individual, and depending on what that looks like, they do some similar things for Sarasota County, Okeechobee County, and some other counties in this area, where we could supplement our staff with some additional code enforcement help for sweeps. For example, you know, we talked about Montura, for example, doing that area next potentially, and so we agree that the volume is so great that it's not feasible with the 3 officers that we have, and so we're looking into alternatives to bring back to you, hopefully in the somewhat near future. We're looking at what that pricing might be, and we're seeing what that looks like for these sweeps to be able, and then along with the magistrate process, you know, after tonight you approving this, to go forward to try to really kind of get a jump start on this.
Okay.
And it's not in a replacement of, it's just in addition to.
Right. Some temporary help of some sorts. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Awesome.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Before we move forward, Mr. Herrera, I apologize. We're gonna fit him in here real quick. He's been here from all the way from Clewiston. I saw this on the bottom, but I didn't realize it was separate from the PUD. So I've got you pulled up now. Would you come on up, please, sir? I apologize for keeping you here all night.
Which one is this?
This is actually a write-in, sir. It's for
Montura.
Montura.
Yep.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jesus Herrera. I am actually from the Montura Ranch Estates area, and I've been out there for about 9 years already. And I'm actually presenting in reference to the fish farms that we have out there. In the last meeting that we had with the Central County, there was a concern that was brought up in reference to the wastewater that seems to be going into ditches and going into the canals, which that leads into the reservoir that we have in the back. And it seems to be that water is wastewater, hazardous, and at the same time they are releasing additional eggs of tilapia fish into the canals. So The reason I was bringing that up was in order for you guys to see if there's any potential in probably bringing up like an investigation or bringing in a department that could actually check the waters and make sure that this wastewater isn't contaminating our water reservoirs. At the same time, one of the board members also referenced that there was potential that there's somebody probably digging into the dirt, probably about 30 feet down into the water, and probably also dispensing that water waste. There was another thing I was also going to speak about, and I know I only have a minute for it, but it's a separate thing, and it's in reference to Dadle and Kennel. They're two dirt roads that we have, and I wanted to ask to see if, for any chance, we could actually get it to have a posted speed limit at about 25 miles per hour, because there are too many vehicles that are just flying by, and at least the deputies will be able to enforce if vehicles are going at a faster speed.
Okay.
I can address
speak
some
to
of
this?
that.
Please, sir, yes.
So I had earlier conversations. It started last week because I did receive some calls about some fish farms. I know there's multiple there, so I don't know if we're talking about exactly the same ones or not, but I suspect we are, since it's starting to flare up a little bit. I do know that the engineer for Central County is now involved. There is already conversation and possibly even some visits already being made by the Florida Department of Ag, which regulates those fish farms. It's not a county-regulated issue. It's a state Department of Ag regulates those. And they are gathering data and information and facts.
Okay.
And that was the one thing that I requested, because I have received some other phone calls from some other individuals, and a lot of things are being said, and it's hard for anyone to act on that without having facts of what is and is not occurring.
Yeah, I do know that Arminio, which is the manager, and Louis Napoli, which is one of the board members, they have photos and videos of the water being running off into
That's
like
right.
ditches.
And I'm aware of that. And so they're all of that's being taken into consideration, being examined and researched to find out the facts of what is happening, what is permitted, what is not permitted. And so they are aggressively addressing that.
Awesome.
That is happening. The other piece, everything within, the only thing that the county has any type of control over in Montour is woodland and pinecone. And so Dadle and Kennel fall under the Central County with regards to maintenance, speed limit, stop signs, maintenance, with any of that. So we, to my knowledge, have no arm over what they do on anything other than woodland and pinecone.
Okay. Now they did mention something that had to do with the county regulations, and at the same time it had to be brought up to you guys. That's what Benny said. And in addition to that, he said that has to be DOT regulations that pop into it. So
I don't think DOT has any regulations over data or Dadle and Kennel.
I think what he may be referring to is that in order for a special district roads to have special speed limits enforced by the sheriff's office, the county has to authorize that in some way. And there is an action that this board took like in 1998 or so that basically delegated to the sheriff enforcement authority and to work with Central County on traffic restrictions within Central County. And so that was an action that was taken a long time ago. And the attorney for Central County Water Control contacted me to ask about that maybe 2 months ago, and I sent him a copy of that. I can't remember what the board action was, if it was a resolution or an interlocal agreement. I think it might have been a resolution. And he said, thank you, and I didn't hear anything further.
The end of it. What's the current speed limit posted there?
None.
None?
That's why I'm bringing it up. It's because there's no speed limit, and anybody could just fly by, and there's no regulation on it.
Well, there's a speed limit whether it's posted or not.
Yeah, on the asphalt, but not on the dirt road. So
I believe there is, even on the dirt roads. There's understood if it's not posted, it
I
still
think
has
what
to
he's
be.
saying, there's no sign.
Yeah, okay. You need
but,
signage.
Yeah, having a posted speed limit would be a much appropriate.
Okay.
But Mr. Chair, so Mr. Herrera, I want you to know though, it's not that we're trying to circumvent, our ability to help. It's just that we don't have any jurisdiction over that
Of course.
area.
No, I know that.
So if you could carry that back to the Central County Water Drainage District Board, we would greatly appreciate it. And we can make notice of them, in writing as well, that's the stance of the county.
Can they put their own signs up?
They do put their own signs up.
Put their own signs
Yes,
up.
sir. Yep.
Okay, so it would be Central County Water Control District to post a speed limit.
I don't think it's too much of a presumption. I'm pretty sure that's the way it is right now.
Like it is stop
Yeah.
signs and everything else.
Yeah.
They have it, they do all that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, appreciate it.
Thank
Yeah,
you, Mr.
have a
Chairman.
great
Mr.
evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Emledge. We're coming back to number 2 under staff reports.
Commissioners, this item is to recommend the promotion of one of our building inspectors to the building official position. As you know, we have Mark Lynch left us on May 15th. We do have an interlocal agreement, to be able to utilize him until as needed. We did advertise for the position, and
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the recommendation of Mr. or Mrs. Leslie Lynn Jordan.
Lynn Jordan.
As provided in the board packet. And let me just ask a quick question. Why are y'all asking us for this opinion? Is it because it's a technicality or what?
Department Director.
Okay, all right, okay.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion by Commissioner Turner, second by Commissioner Harris. Any further discussion?
How much more schooling does he have to have?
well, I'm glad you asked. I happen to have it right here. Thank you. Thank you, Lynn, for providing it.
Leslie.
And
Leslie.
anyway, the testing for the building official certification will include 3 modules: management, legal, building codes and standards. He already has standard inspector and standard plans examiner certifications, as well as principles and practices. That's required as well. So he has a year to complete and pass those modules, and with the expectation that'll occur, he'll be an official and not just a provisional building official.
Does he get a pay raise whenever he does that, or is he started right now and then it's
Well,
gonna
we're
move to
thinking
there?
about that.
Okay.
I
Yes.
think he,
Yes, sir.
I
He
think he
will.
wants the same amount of money as he always. He's a county man.
Yeah, right. No,
Yeah.
we will be working on that part of it.
Miss
We
Emledge.
wanted to get over this, and
I would love to hear what you were going to finish saying about when you advertised. Did you get any response back from
we
qualified
got
folks?
two responses from qualified folks. But at some point in time, Lynn met with me and showed his great enthusiasm to take the position. And I thought, well, that would be great to go ahead and
I'm all about it being Mr. Jordan, but now you still have to shore up a hole when you move him up.
that's correct, sir.
So I was wondering what the availability of folks would be to.
For a building inspector, we'll have to advertise for that.
Okay.
Right
But-
now, he can do both of them now, can't he?
Well, that's what he thinks. He's got a cape on, I think.
Yeah.
That Superman, that he can do both for a while. Well, between him and Mark Lynch still helping us out, I think we'll be okay, and we'll just keep a thumb on it to see if we have to jump into getting another person right away or not. But I suspect that'll be the case.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Turner, second by Commissioner Harris. Any further discussion on this?
I just think that you should contemplate some sort of in-house, y'all should have a chat about if you're able to secure that, those certifications and whatnot that he needs to do in an expedited fashion, that there should be some sort of incentive associated with that.
Or the incentives, yes, we plan on providing that. Yes. Okay?
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
The next item before you, Commissioners,
That makes me
is
happy.
our transportation discussions that we have had over the last several months. Currently, our CTC provider is Goodwill's, and we have had quite a few complaints and issues. And the process, we have to get way ahead of ourselves as far as what we are going to do for the next cycle. The next cycle starts July 1st, 2020, and the grant application deadline is December 31st of 2019. In order to do that, the Heartland Transportation folks are going to have to go out to RFP for a new CTC in June. And so we have had some discussions. I have had some discussions with them, as well as the Glades County Administrator. Hendry and Glades County are one geographical area. And so either, we have a couple options that I wanted to bring before you tonight for your consideration. They can go forward with their RFP, as they have always done in the past. And in the past, I think Goodwill's has been the only respondent to that. So we can absolutely do that again. Or we have first rights of refusal to be our own CTC. So what I'm recommending is for you to consider that, for us to take that right. In talking with Glades County Administrator, he's talking to his board tonight, and we feel that their board would probably be agreeable to an interlocal agreement for Hendry County to become the CTC. We would have an interlocal agreement with Glades County. Then we would go out to RFP for a contract for services. There has been some discussions, and I won't name the firms, but there has been discussions of some other interests with some other companies that are interested.
Besides Goodwill.
Correct.
Oh, wow.
And so we are interested in that. And in other areas surrounding, without saying who the firm is, they are in other areas surrounding us, and they manage a contract, and then they have subcontractors. So they could have, for example, Positive Mobility, they could have multiple subcontractors for these transportation services. In an area like Okeechobee, DeSoto, Hardy, for example, there's a local company that's a transportation provider. They use Positive and this other local company. So the model would look different, but the difference is we would have control of the contract. So if things started happening as they're happening right now, we would have more control to be able to do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
When do we need to make that decision?
So what I'm really asking for.
Both direction right now, so that we can get into further discussions of what it's gonna look like as we move it forward.
Oh, yeah.
Correct?
I don't think anyone's opposed to that, are they? I think you got a
No, we're
roaring.
gonna fight about it.
Yeah.
Would you be in agreement unless, so Glades County, if they request a workshop with you all, we could do that. If tonight, when their administrator speaks to them, if they don't feel like they need a workshop, would you be in agreement just for us to bring back an interlocal agreement to you with Hendry and Glades?
Yes.
And then we'll move forward that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the only reason I wanna have another workshop with Glades County is to discuss, their training center.
Again.
Do you need a motion for that?
So I was just looking for direction.
Direction, okay, you got it.
And then the last item that I have for you are two letters as a follow-up of the Lake O five-county joint meeting that we had
Y'all see those?
last month. What they're requesting is their digital signatures. Okeechobee County has already signed. Martin and Palm Beach will sign on June 4th, and I believe Glades County is planning to sign tonight. And so wanted to make sure you all were in approval to do that, and we'll figure out how to do the digital.
You need a motion towards that?
I believe we
I'd make a motion, for staff to draft, something along the lines of this, and then, as y'all, our chairman will sign, for us on behalf.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Turner, second by Commissioner Byrd. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Lapp.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we have this agreement with Foley and Lardner providing the legal services on the Everglades project. The not to exceed amount is not changing. The hourly rate is. I realize that's much higher than we've ever paid before. They are doing very high level work, and it is being entirely reimbursed by AIA. And AIA's attorney said they have no objection to the amendment.
Move to approve.
I'll second that with just some discussion. Just a quick question. You said totally funded? Because I thought the write-up said that there was a cap of 75K.
Oh, okay. It's capped at 75,000 with the expectation it'll be totally completed within the 75,000.
Oh, okay, all right. Because I know if you give attorneys leadway, they'll be writing all kind of stuff over there. I know how they are.
They already are.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Harris, second by Commissioner Swindle. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Public all left. So let's start with business by district. Mr. Swindle.
Can we go through the residential design standards again?
He's a comedian.
I know that we're going into tax season, and I had a great conversation with Attorney Lapp last week, and I just kind of wanted to see my thought process is what we do this year and next year need to be somewhat in conjunction. I really like the idea of an MSBU to enhance our sheriffs and our EMTs and those essential life services that we struggle so hard to recruit and retain within Henry County. I don't think outside of an MSBU that we're ever going to make that happen. However, having said that, I know that an MSBU is not possible for this year because of the timing and the steps that it takes to make that happen. But having said that also, I'm not sure, number one, how the board feels about that, because this is going to be a lengthy process to get us to that. So if we're interested as a board in looking at what that process would be, and even if it's feasible for us, is it something that we would like to ask staff to spend a minimal amount of time to bring back and say, look, if we did an MSBU, and here's what it would look like, and here's the potential we could do if we went down this road, considering it's going to be 12 months from now, not now. Would that be something that y'all would like to look at, or am I the lone wolf on this? And if that's the case, then I'll be quiet about it.
The way I look at the MSBU, it's, again, it's taxes.
It's taxes, that's right.
Okay, and whatever you do on the MSBU would just be the same as doing a tax. And I think the people in the county would also see that all we're doing is just adding another tax burden on them.
It is a tax burden, no doubt, no doubt. But
if they need more money, the only way you can do that is just raise the millage. And
well, that's not the only way. You can also do it through an MSBU. And the problem with the millage is what percentage of our constituents pay it?
What? A smaller percentage.
Half.
Yeah.
Half. And so when you're doing a BU, guess who pays it?
Well, I don't know.
So I believe that a BU would be, and you're talking about life services. We're not talking about for any other reason than to be able to prop up a better wage, basically, is what we're talking about for our essential life services that we provide and that we struggle with providing every day.
You're only doing this if you're only receptive to this if we can carve out via our millage right now and show what that number is and what it renders, and then make it a like for like.
I'm not sure carving out is the right answer. That's why I say I believe that we need to look at it. I'm looking more of it as a supplement to the salary. Because if you carve it out, you really haven't done anything. You just switched it around.
No, you contradict yourself, sir. Because you said a percentage are paying in towards ad valorem.
That's right.
In entirety would pay into the MSBU.
That's correct.
So you are creating more people to be able to contribute to the pie.
That's correct. That's correct. But it has nothing to do with taking away from ad valorem. I'm not asking. I'm not saying not. I'm not saying we should. The whole purpose of the BU is to create another pot of money that everyone equally shares proportionally to be able to fund, those places where we are really, really lagging. It maybe carve it out. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't know that. I would love for staff to say, if you did it, here are some options. Here's what it would look like. Here's how much money you could raise. Here's what it would look like per household. Is it $20? Is it $50? I don't know. So I think that we should spend a little bit of sweat equity looking at the shell before we take a deep dive.
So, Mr. Lapp, the people that comes under the $25,000 cap, do they pay? What all do they pay?
They have to pay special assessments, so the homestead exemption cap does not apply to special assessments. But two important caveats about MSBUs. One is they don't apply in the cities unless the cities consent. We only impose MSBUs within the unincorporated county. We can impose in the cities, but the city commissions have to agree to the assessments occurring. So that's a big condition. The second thing is that you have to prove benefit. You have to prove benefit of the asset, that the property is benefited in proportion to the amount that you're assessing people. And since this would be a brand new assessment, there's consulting firms that evaluate these kinds of things and do the math and evaluation, and we shouldn't be just taking a wag and coming
That's
up
right.
with something. So we'd have to hire a consultant to evaluate how much should a home pay versus a business of this size versus a business of that size versus a nonprofit organization building.
And before we ever got to that stage, that would be a whole new layer after we look at it and say, yeah, this would be beneficial, because maybe when we looked at the analytics, we could say, no, we don't need, it would be better to raise the millage than it would be to do this. I'm just saying we ought to look at it as an option, because it's going to be a lengthy process, because we have consultants we have to hire and processes we have to go through to make that happen. But my only question to the board is do we think that we should ask staff to spend some time bringing some general analytics back before we go any further? Maybe Attorney Lapp would have to outline what the cost of what that consultant would be and the time frame involved. I would love to see, this is what X amount of dollars per unit would yield the county in additional revenue.
How do everyone pay into the SMB?
If you live here, you pay it. If you have a business here,
Even if you
you're going
don't
to pay
have
it
a
on property. That's correct.
Didn't you say,
Someone's going to pay it. The owner will pay it. Now, he can charge it in rent or whatever.
Yeah, Mark, didn't you say that both cities would have to agree?
Well, each city would have to agree to have it within their own boundaries. I mean, you could have a split with one city saying, yeah, well, they'll take it, and the other one saying, no, they wouldn't.
If the city
But
said no, then it
just be the unincorporated county that'd be paying.
Yeah.
then there's where you, sort of a problem there.
And part of that would be
Possibly.
the city of Clueston does have its own police.
That's
force.
right.
So it may
That's
be
right.
a separate situation.
It
but-
may or may not. They all use
believe-
EMTs, though.
Yeah, I believe that, yes, exactly. I believe that it'd be easier to sell an MSBU for public safety than it is millage, for sure.
Yes.
But to what you said earlier is actually perfect sense. If we created that number that was going to take that out, then we'd have the money for the ad valorem. That would actually affect the millage if you looked at it, because the millage
Right.
could go down.
Wouldn't it?
It would, because you could do that, because the MSBU would be picking up the slack that you're actually losing. So, I mean, and selling an MSBU, like I said again, okay, this is gonna be an MSBU for your public safety, but your millage is gonna go down. I think, and everyone, I believe you was on to something there. We really need to look at that.
Tell me where I'm oversimplifying this.
You would carve out a number, but I think the point being is that number may not necessarily, and I'm not speaking for you, but I think what you're trying to say is that number
cover
may
it.
not necessarily be the same number, because you would potentially be able to levy more dollars because everybody's paying, whereas with ad valorem, not everybody's paying.
Right.
Is that a fair
Yes, okay.
way to say it?
Yes.
And so for me, it kind of also cuts out this this voodoo math associated with our East Fire, West Fire, Sheriff's Department for patrol versus corrections, and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? It's that ball of wax is X, and if you want the level of service today that you have, Henry County constituency, it's going to cost you X.
And I remember 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, when we were talking about an assessment for West Rec for the ball fields and
Yes,
the
sir.
lights, folks lined up and said, no. Now, if you're talking about something that'll help, bring more police and more sheriff's department, I'm all in.
Increase in ambulance.
That's right.
I remember that.
They every one of them got up and echoed that.
Once again, I believe you're changing the whole spectrum there. You're going from recreation to life safety.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think-
and that's
and
what our
everyone
constituents
complains all
said.
the time about life safety. Well,
Right.
this is how we can,
That's right.
and I believe that's gonna be a big difference.
Yeah, that's right.
What would happen, think about if the city said no?
If the city says no, then that's a
It's a more money deal.
well, it's a discussion that has to be had. But
Yeah.
I guess the gist is this, Commissioner Swindle, you're asking, does our board, or are you a lone wolf? And I would say that I'm receptive to the conversation. I would say that I'm receptive to being able to put it in black and white numbers and being able to see it right there and say, the county today has 5 ambulances. We have a county sheriff's department that has 150 employees or 300 employees. I don't know, but that, and it has X number of fire trucks on this side and X number of fire trucks on this side, and these are those things that are occurring, and that costs $18 million or that costs $10 million. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen of the public. If you want that level of service to stay there, and you're comfortable with that, then we can do that with this number on the MSBU. And listen, you're not saying we're going to lock into that. You're just saying let's do we want to have a discussion about it?
That's all I'm asking.
And I completely hear what you're saying, Commissioner Harris, when you say a tax is a tax is a tax. I get it, and I'm it's just the franchise fee.
Yeah.
I'm 100%. I agree with what you're saying, but at the same time, I gotta go on the other side of that equation and say, but man, it seems like every time I turn around, I'm just looking at it and I'm trying to crack the public safety nut, and I can't do it. I can't do it with the millage that we're trying to operate within.
That's right.
Well, you'd have to keep the millage down, and the new money would have to supplement.
You can't supplement it. If you can't do better, you may as well not do it. You may as well leave it the way it is.
That's exactly right. And
That's what I said, that takes new money.
That's right.
The only way to know that is to take a look at it.
That's right. That's all I'm asking is, and I don't know what that means, and I hate tasking staff with additional chores because I know they're as bogged down as everyone else and behind. But if we don't start today, we'll be here this time next year holding the same conversation. Our sheriffs will still be losing X amount of folks a week because they're going 15 miles. I know it happens and it's going to happen, but we can't keep EMTs and because they're going for 15 grand for driving.
Well, we got to
10 miles
ask
to
for
the west.
special permission to have a BLS versus ALS versus.
Yeah, that's right.
Because we can't hire a paramedic to man
That's right.
a investment that the county taxpayers have already made.
Yeah.
From an ambulance perspective. So I support the effort to at least have the discussion, Commissioner Swindle. I can't say that if you put it in front of me today and we could cut the millage back, what is our millage, 8.4909 or 8.2? I don't know.
Well,
If we went from 5 and 2 point something, we're towards that, I don't know if I'd be for it right now. I don't know.
I don't know if I would be either. Without looking at the facts and the
You gotta look
information.
at the numbers first.
Yes, sir.
That's right. Me too. I'm on board with that.
That's all you're asking right now.
That's all I'm
But
asking.
I agree that we lose so many people, and it costs to bring them back, bring another person in.
Yeah, train them. The
Yeah,
time
to
you train them and go through all that
So you
again.
lose more, so we do need to know. We do need to know.
Anything else?
Yes. The FACT convention. I have been, I am wrapped up in a school safety training for the month of June. And I'm not going to be able to attend with the exception of one day and one event that I'm going to be there for that one day. My concern is on the FACT board. Do we want to, or do we have time? I don't know if Commissioner Turner knows or Ms. Davis knows. Can we go ahead now and make a change and let someone else, perhaps, I'm impartial to who, but if someone else would like to be the other FACT board member so that we can be represented with our equal votes?
I think we'll be fine. I don't think there's any issue, but if not, we'll just find a way to get you out of there. And
Yeah, well, I just want to make sure we're represented, because we got incoming officers and things like that, and we want to make sure that.
I think we'll be good. I think we will. I mean, you're going to have representation there, so we're
Yeah.
fine. Yes,
Okay.
sir. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to I didn't want to not make sure the county is represented because I.
Are you going to be with us for one day at least up there?
One day. Get there late one evening and then one day.
Wonderful.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Nothing by district, just went to the FACT, and it was a good meeting. Was able to share a lot with different commissioners, and I love that, because we can't do it here, and then I tell you, it's just such an impact on the commissioner to be able to share with other commissioners. Also, I talked to Jennifer, they did talk a little bit about the CBD. They talked about the law passing in July. They also talked about it's being passed in Georgia and Florida, and they're concerned that it's gonna wipe through Florida. Because they're taxing them so or putting a stipulation on them to get it there that they won't put it there. They'll try to bring it to the state of Florida when it passes over. And but it was some good conversation. We talked about the firefighters, which I also spoke to Jennifer about that. It was just a good meeting. It was good exchange to have. So other than that, looking forward to seeing you guys in June.
I'm good.
You good?
What you
Commissioner
say?
Turner?
I'm good.
Commissioner Swindle, you're superintendent today of Henry County Schools. The state of Florida releases a number of FSA scores back in for third graders. 47% are level 3. What are you doing?
You know, the greatest programs in the world don't help scores and they don't help achievement. The greatest teachers in the world do. And so you can program it to death and you can analyze it to death, but you've got to invest. You've got to make sure your culture's good. Your teachers are doing their job in the classroom every day, and we have a wad of them that are. And you just got to really bring it home and make sure that you are focusing and doing what you need to be doing in the classroom every day. Not worrying about the big picture of we need to make sure we're following Engage New York and all these extravagant programs. Good people in classrooms is what drive achievement. We're suffering from the same thing. Recruiting and getting teachers to come here, certified teachers, is an absolute monumental task. And some of those numbers are showing up when you have to have full-time subs and different because you can't get enough folks to fill teachers in classes.
Mm-hmm. What are going to be top 2 or 3 milestones that you're anticipating you're going to want to measure? And understand now, as this process moves forward, you know, I have memory like an elephant.
Yeah.
I'm going to hold you to the fire on this one.
Absolutely.
There's nothing I'm more passionate about than education.
Sure.
And, you know, when I'm looking at Hardee County at 59%, Chobe's at 59%, Glades is at 62%. You know, we play all those guys in football, we're going to win.
Yeah, that's right.
Football is easy to fix.
Yeah.
It's easy to fix. Our third graders reading and our babies being able to compete at that level, and then that turning into a strong fourth grader, so on and so forth, and making this a conversation that's more relevant. You know, what are your thoughts?
Culture drives a lot of achievement, and where some of the biggest turnaround has to happen within our school district is we've got to place the teachers back at the top of the culture chain. They have to be the central authority within that classroom and within that school. That central authority has to be supported by the school, and which is supported by the district level. Today, and in many districts, that is completely opposite of where it is.
Yeah, I hear so many teachers saying they feel as if they're hostage in their own facility.
They are not free to make decisions that a good leader in a classroom would make. They're not free to teach in ways. They're held hostage to certain curriculums that may or may not be productive for this particular school or this particular classroom. And so we've got to allow teachers to have the freedom to teach and be at the top of the pyramid rather than at the bottom of the pyramid. And then that culture where they are supported, they're valued, and they're allowed to be the leaders they are, that will be the biggest turnaround driver of change that we have in our school system today.
I'm counting on you to do a lot of things, Commissioner Swindle.
And we're going to clean up. There's not going to be any code cases on campus either.
Yeah, there better not be any code cases on campus.
That's right.
I'm done, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
To echo what Ms. Bird said, we had a really good trip this time. I think it was one of the best ones we've had, to be honest with everyone here. You've been through the ACC, you've been through the CCC, and I believe this actual one we just was more productive than the past that I've seen. Every one of the professors were very knowledgeable, but it was very interactive. So you got to actually sit in and have the perspective of everyone there. And it went from large counties down to small counties, and there was a lot of conversation of where they were when they were in the same situation we are now, how they got there. Professors chimed in, and it was really a really good meeting. So thank everyone for allowing us to be a part of that. We have 2 more classes, and if they continue the way they are, they really are very productive. So I think it's going to be a good thing. Thank you, Mr. Parker, for all the help you got last week. I hated to bombard you there, and I appreciate everything. I believe we're going in the right direction. I've had no more complaints, so I believe we're on an upward scale there. which is a good thing. And thank you, Ms. Emledge, all the work you've done on the reports that we've looked at tonight. Thank you for the work with Wheeler Estates in Felda. The residents in Felda are very pleased with everything that you've done there. So I believe staff's been doing an outstanding job. So we just got to keep empowering them to do what we're asking them to do. And again, I believe moving the needle forward is going to be, like you said, impacting the staff to know they have the ability and they have the backing that when it comes down to it, we're going to stand behind them and support them. That's really all I have, too. Does anyone have anything else before we close?
Mr. Chair, I'll just say a couple things to the issues that you and Ms. Bird participated in. First off, your time is your most precious resource. The fact that y'all are devoting the time to go do that, I think it just speaks volumes. I know that us three have gone through a lot of those educational opportunities, but it's so rewarding to know that we've been involved at every level of that educational process, and it's the difference between us up here fighting like cats and dogs, and each having our own individual issues that we want to push across and beat our chest and say this is the way it has to be done, and the difference between us finding common ground and moving the ball down the field, so to speak. It's so minuscule, but it's so great in that overall, aspect to be able to effectuate change as it relates to our constituents. And so I just want to tell y'all all again, I know I sound like a cheerleader again, but it's just amazing how many times this commission takes everyone's opinion into play. You listen to what staff has to say. You listen to what your colleagues throughout the peninsula have to say. You marinate on it. We come to our meetings prepared, and I'm very proud and honored to work with y'all. And I just thank y'all for making our jobs easier, because I think that this speaks volumes to the testament of kind of people you all are.
I will be a part of educational board for that.
Good.
That's awesome.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.